Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range.
Forever. Do you understand that?
Tried to hold us back, to hold us back, to hold us. They tried to hold us back, forcing the fame.
Dirty and murder them, 1/3 of the unpreferable, putting back in the cervical backbone. Hats throw, sick, we spitting, where words turn solid.
Hey, it's Shan here. This week I speak with Ty Coling. Ty is from the eastern suburbs of Sydney, Australia. He has had an awesome life growing up in the Bondi area, skateboarding in that area since the 80s. And he shares his life story quite openly and honestly. But just as a bit of a disclaimer, we do talk a lot about skateboarding in this episode because Ty's life has been so intertwined with the activity that he loves so much. Ty shares about his early days working in a surf/skate shop in the Bondi area, and then how that then took him on a trajectory towards working in the skate industry in various ways, from his early days of being sponsored by streetwear clothing company Juice Clothing with founder Guy Miller and helping with the production of their videos and the design of some of their clothes, including mesh shorts back in the 90s, those fresh mesh shorts. He also then has gone on to work for distribution company Blackbox Distribution, which was the company established by Jamie Thomas in America. And nowadays he works for Hardcore Distribution, which is one of the original Australian distribution companies. And he has his own skate coaching business called Flow Skate, which is really epic. And in terms of experience and knowledge, Ty is just a wealth of information. He's seen both sides of the sport, like being the skate side and then seeing the other side of the industry, and I guess in some ways achieve what many people have wanted to achieve, and that is to work in the industry and sustain a living that way. He's always been a really humble and kind guy, and he is just the same as what he was 20, 30 years ago. He loves skating. Like, we went skating for the day, and he just wouldn't stop. Like, we skated for like 3 or 4 hours, and then he still wanted to get a few slappies in on the curb. And we put a little edit together, so you can check that out on the socials, and you'll see like the guy's in his late 40s and still ripping, still progressing, still trying to learn new tricks. And it made me sort of think, like, is skateboarding the fountain of youth? But then I'm like, well, I think when you have a passion for something, like, that's your fountain of youth. And I think it's such a gift to find these things. So you can never stop looking for them or finding them. And I think Ty is a real example of living with passion, and that's why I loved having him on. And it was just great to spend some time with him because I guess we were friends back in the day too. So enjoy my conversation with Mr. Ty Coling, everyone. Cheers.
Look hard enough, you see the string on the broom drum, manipulated by the agent. Come on, the one hand tall, I don't fit it all.
Tried to hold us back.
Get what I'm saying?
Tried to hold us. They tried to hold us vain. Tried to hold us back, forcing the fame.
You know what's funny? These mics might have COVID in them, in the phone,
That's why.
They were recorded all through COVID legally during lockdowns. I'm going public with it now. What are they going to do? Fine me?
Well, they're not now. They're throwing all those fines out.
You know what? I want to hear about your life story. I do. But I'm actually just sort of keen to get started. I want to talk about the skate industry a little bit because, you have vast experience with the skate industry and things like that. Your involvement even back with Juice Clothing back in the day. You've seen the other side that most people don't see. Is it the toughest industry on earth to make a livable income?
I'm not sure if it's the toughest industry to make a livable income, but I don't know. I'd say there's lots of industries that are hard to make an income in, but it's, I don't know, I just fell into things along the way, really. Like I got a job in a, little surf shop, really, that sold skateboards in my local shop.
Which one was that?
Surfection at Bondi Junction. It was one of the first ones. They bought it off Vic Ford, the old surf shop guy, and where I got my first, good skateboard, which was a cab, cab full dragon, Chinese dragon.
There you go.
From there. But then, he sold to Surfection, Chris Athos at Surfection, who did some cool things along the way and built that massively. But I think that was one of his first shops at the time. And, they just wanted, their new skating was sort of going, and so they wanted a skate, help buyer kind of thing. And so I did the skate buying in there for them, and then that morphed into STM opened up the road, which is short for St. Moritz, which is Darren's parents' ski shop, which was around Bondi Junction for many years before that.
Interesting.
And then, Darren wanted to do the snowboard side of things because he was their son and, younger and obviously into surfing and snowboarding and skating and stuff. So he made STM because I think initials were happening at the time, And so he opened the second store, and then he wanted to have a local, I guess, core skater around, and somehow, I don't know, knew people. And I think actually Adam Luxford's girlfriend, Joey, was working there at the time, and I'd had a relationship with Luxford for years or whatever. Was I getting boards off him by that stage? I can't
Control?
remember. Yeah,
Skateboards?
Control. Yeah, I was getting boards off him. So, I mean, it was pretty small back then, so everyone knew each other, obviously, as many people have said before. And so, I used to hang out with them a bit, and Joey just sort of put it out there. I was like, you want to come and work here? And then, that happened. And Darren was pretty forward-thinking, actually. He was always super supportive of the scene, which was awesome, and he wanted to have a skate clinic, basically, and do something to sort of get skating happening. I'm pretty sure it was sort of his idea, and then somehow it came together with WAYS, which is Waverly Action for Youth Services. They got office. Well, they had one actually at Bondi Junction there, and they had a vert ramp there years ago. Yeah, your face says a lot right there, because
a temporary setup?
No, it was. That's a funny whole story in itself. So they had this office at Bondi Junction, like in terrace houses and in the backyard, basically. But it was like a youth centre. It was literally a youth centre place. But they wanted to incorporate skating, and this is like 89-ish, 88, 89, somewhere there. So they built a vert ramp in the back, which steel frame, steel surface, plywood underlay. It was possibly one of the most perfectly built vert ramps, and best tranny and coping, but it had 4 feet of flat bottom.
It's like a U-pipe.
Pretty much. And it was pretty hectic. Up against a wall, to add, had 2 roll-ins, one sort of like adjacent to each other.
How high? 10 foot?
11,
Okay.
probably 10 and 1, something like that. And it, like I say, the transition and vert and construction were second to none at the time, but it had 4 feet of flat bottom, and you just had to deal with that. But I learned quite a lot on that ramp, funnily enough.
Is this pre-Bondi vert ramp?
Yes, just pre-Bondi vert ramp. And it was, there was some amazing stuff. I saw Chris Holland, and we can go there. He did McTwists on that ramp with ollie horns on, in fairness, because he was in that stage at the time. But, I mean, man, doing anything properly on that ramp was ultimately pretty hectic, because with no flat bottom, it was death, and it was super fast. Things were happening super quick on that thing. And so anyway, WAYS were trying to do stuff with skating over time, and they also had a office or set up down in Bondi at the beach as well. And yeah, somehow it was a collaboration between STM and Waze, and basically they got Adam Luxford again to build a teeny little mini street course kind of setup, and what STM would pay me to go along and essentially be a coach / mentor kind of thing at the time, and then Waze would have their staff come along and have the youth centre kids sort of rock up, and that was a mixture of skaters and just youth centre like kids, taggers and different just young kids around.
Homeboys.
Yeah, a bit of everything sort of thing, troubled kids, all sorts, and they would come to the skate clinic. It was every second Saturday for like 4 years pretty much.
This is started back in 89, 90.
No, well, so then this was probably... No, this was years later. This would have been 97 by this stage. Because I was at Surfection from 95 to 97, and then I went to STM, and 97 is when, as soon as I started working there, Darren was like, I want to do this skate clinic thing.
Right.
And so that happened, and then...
So it was one of the OG skate coaches, because really there wasn't many skate coaches back then.
Not really. And I mean, in fairness, it wasn't like super hardcore coaching. It was just skating with the kids and, just sort of helping them here and there. It was for the youth centre kids, and to be just someone there, and I guess, for lack of anything else to say, like just inspirational, just someone older who could relate to them because you're a skater and they're street kids and they want to skate and all of that side of things. And so, it was cool. Did that for a bunch of years. And it was fun.
Paid gig?
Yeah, it was paid. STM would pay me. That was STM's contribution. They probably paid for the street course, for Luxford's street course. Waze had the storage set up for that. And, we'd just go and rent a trailer from the service station and then drag it around and pull it out and run a rock up. The Waze would bring a barbecue down and cook up some sausage sangers and have some cordial and whatever for all the kids and everyone, and it went for 2 or 3 hours or however long it went for. And it was cool over that time because, I was in the scene as such. I knew Dustin and got him to come along one time and skate
Dustin
with the
Dolan.
kids. Yeah, Dustin Dolan, yeah. And so he skated, and then I got along with Gershon Mosley as well, and he came along and skated with the kids.
What happened to him? A-team.
He just, I don't know, he just sort of dropped out and did Gershon stuff, I think he's a super deep person.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a very deep person. And I hung out with him a bit and talked to him and stuff. He was going out with a girl that I knew, a local Bondi girl. And, he was cool, but he was funny. He had his thing going on, and he's like, I'll come along, but, I don't really want the kids to ask me to sign things and stuff. They can talk to me about skating or whatever, but I don't really want to be full pro guy. I want to skate.
Okay.
And I'll be down with them, but I just don't want to be like, hero guy. I just want to skate with them and do stuff. And it was cool. So, I got different people along there, and it was just a good vibe.
Yeah.
Overall,
How old were you when you got that first, going back a little bit, how old were you when you got that first job at the surf shop? Or the skate
21, 22.
Yeah. And where were you born and raised?
Born in Paddington, at the Women's Hospital, which is now a park, a memorial park. And then mostly basically grew up around Woollahra at my mum's place, but also at my dad's place, which is in Paddington, literally right around the corner from where I was born.
Okay.
Amazing place, that one, this old tobacco factory, which I've still got relics from here. Old tobacco packing boxes.
Well, you found them in the house?
No, they just left everything in there. When he bought it, they closed the tobacco factory and they just left all the machinery and all these other bits and pieces of the boxes over there.
No way. Those wooden ones where you got the light in.
Yeah.
That's right. They look sick.
Yeah.
I actually noticed that. I was like, that's pretty cool, Ty. You're pretty good at decorating. Did they leave any free ciggies?
I don't know if there was any tobacco, but they were cool little... actual little tobacco boxes and pouches and stuff. It was
Oh,
a
those
bit
little
Robin
tins
Hood
and
tobacco and stuff. Yeah, little tins.
way.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I think he sold the machines to people who were interested in that kind of thing.
Interesting.
And then when he sold that, they converted into warehouse-style apartments, of course. But that was an amazing place to live. Like, you literally stroll from one side of the building to the other. You know, it was like a big place.
You're a full eastern suburbs kid.
For sure.
You don't have that vibe though. You're kind of down to earth.
Eastern Suburbs wasn't quite what it has turned into. It was a bit different back then. But it was funny. My other place, my mum's place in Woollahra, was this other amazing house. And when she'd bought it, it had 2 tennis courts on there apparently. And then by the time I'd grown up, gotten older and understanding what was going on, it was full jungle. She just turned it into a jungle and had my friends over at school playing war games and stuff like that. It was,
Good memories?
Yeah, it was great memories. Definitely good times back then. So yeah, I grew up all around there. She eventually let me build a little mini ramp in the backyard, 1.5 foot high, tiny, and that was just really good for footwork. Really good for footwork. It was tiny, and lots of people came over and couldn't skate it. And
was it tight or no flat bottom again?
Tight. No, it was tight, but it had flat bottom.
Okay.
One iteration had a spine, like half of it, like 4 foot wide spine with a parking block on one side and stuff, and I learned heaps of tricks on that ramp.
And this is in Woollahra?
This is in Woollahra, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like Bondi and the eastern suburbs, you know, let's face it, it's probably one of the most affluent suburbs in the country. However, describe Bondi in the early 90s when it was like the full Scum Valley vibe.
Well, I go back further than that into the 80s.
Let's go.
And yeah, it was pretty sketchy. Like the first half pipe I skated was down in defunct service station, basically, which is on Campbell Parade, right where now I think it's the Pacific building, and it turned into the Ramada or Grant something or other. And
Swiss Grand,
that's right. Good work. Which had some good ledges out the front, which we skated a lot back in the day. But before all that, there was Housing Commission flats behind that, and then there's defunct service station, and the locals built a half pipe in there, which was like 4 foot on one side, and like 7 or 8 foot on the other side, and 8 foot wide or something or other, and it was pretty sketchy down there, and like taggers used to hang out then, and that was fully the time when you had to be looking over your shoulder for taggers. They didn't like skateboarders, but thankfully I kind of knew a couple of the local ones, and I was tiny, you know, I didn't grow till I was like 16, 17, something or other, and it was pretty like, oh, you gotta look out for what's going on around here. But everyone used to hang out down there, like Pauline Mensah, who was world champ surfer. Yeah, she used to skate down there with everyone, and there was a whole bunch of crew, and that's where I first saw Chris Holland, who was my first local influence, just going, oh my goodness, this dude can skate.
Would you regard him as your major early influence?
For sure.
To get you right into skateboarding?
100%.
What was it about him that drew you to him? He was just good?
Just good, super. You could just tell, because other guys were like surfer guys, bit surf style, you know, and all that, and they could do some stuff. But Chris, I remember, was doing like indie nose picks on the ramp, and like he'd rock to fakie on the small side and then do fakie ollies on the big side, and he just was really together, like had skate style, you know, but he surfed as well. But yeah, that was the first ramp I dropped in on, like first half pipe that I dropped in on. I remember going off the side first time and I kind of handled, but then just it started there basically. I mean, I think I had quarter pipes before that or something or other. But then they knocked that one down and built like about a 6 foot overall ramp, which was maybe 4 panels wide, so maybe 16 feet wide. And they basically went to vert or something like that. And I remember seeing Chris try McTwists on that and like getting really close. And I started trying them on there because of him, and I couldn't do anything, like basically.
Did you ever have a McTwist in your repertoire?
No, unfortunately.
Because I know what you did have in your repertoire. I'll never forget. You had like heel flip caballerial indie grabs, didn't you?
Yeah, I did several of those.
But that was like in the 90s. Like that was such a tech vert trick.
It was. I was stoked. I would say that's probably the best or whatever most technical trick that I've kind of ever done. I would say. Certainly didn't have it wired, but I whacked out a few of them.
Do you remember your first one you ever made?
Oh, yeah, very well.
Describe that day where you just...
I've been trying it for years, you know. Like I learned kickflip indies first. I was doing them for a little while. Didn't have them fully sussed, but then I think, obviously Danny did it first, Danny Way, that is. And I don't know why I started trying them, but I did. I literally was trying them probably since 93, I would say, and then I'm pretty sure it was 96 when I finally made it. I've been trying it a lot. And then I was at Tarrant Point Vertex one night with my mate Snake, Shannon Colster. And Sectile,
Represent.
indeed, yeah. Len Taylor, of course. Just saw his board on the wall. And Aaron Brown was out there taking photos. I was shooting, I think I was specifically shooting photos for an interview with Skate Australia. Yeah.
When Gordo was
there? When Gordo was there, yeah. And Snake was filming, and I don't know how many I tried, but then I made one, and I was just rolling away, and I was like, wow. And I remember I was pretty damn happy right about then. I was pumped.
That feeling post-landing a trick you've been wanting to get, how addictive is that for those that have never experienced it? Can you describe it?
It's hard to describe because sometimes, as a lot of people say, you don't even realise you've made it. You're just rolling away and you sort of kind of black out in that moment, and it just happens. And it's ineffable. You can't describe it. But if you know, particularly if you've been trying it for a while, and then you do roll away and you make it, and you jump out, or roll away at something on the street or whatever, and keep going. You just know how stoked you are because you've put so much effort into trying it, and thought, and potentially pain, and you finally get it. It's what keeps, I think, everyone skateboarding, I would say.
Does it, you get that feeling, it's like everything goes in slow motion all of a sudden, like it's like a zen moment. It really is.
For sure.
Surfers talk about it when they get big barrels and stuff like that, like time slows down.
I think so, and I think that with all skating, when you particularly, in the zone or in flow or whatever, things just slow down, and you see it all. It just is. It's there. It's super cohesive in that moment, even though someone else is looking at it. When you're looking at other people, it's like whoosh, bang, and it just happens. But yeah, it's hard to articulate.
It's kind of when the final neurological pathway wires. You've been building the neurological pathways through repetition, trying, and then it's kind of like the last wire plugs in and goes, okay, and then it all makes sense.
Yeah, I guess.
That moment. And
there's a form, I'm pretty sure, there's a form of relaxation in that moment as well. You just let go and let, fate take over, and your skill and effort that you've already been putting in, you know what I mean? And then it just all comes together in that moment, and that's why you're rolling away, because the movements, where the actual, generally speaking, if you've been skating for that long and you can do X amount of things, where your body should generally be, and it just all comes together, I guess, chemically, electrically, whatever, and somewhat consciously or unconsciously, as the case may be. It just happens.
Yeah, Andrew Huberman, have you heard of him?
Of course.
Neurological, he's the neuroscientist. Yeah,
he's great.
Ex-skater as well.
Yeah.
So for me, he just carries a bit more cred. But he was talking about when you are trying to learn a new trick and you don't get it that day, apparently the real learning happens that night when you go to sleep, and then your brain is actually figuring it all out while you're in a deep sleep. That's why you have to go back a second or a third time, and then it'll make more sense. So he said if you don't land something, it's not, you don't give up on it, because that's actually when you're making some progress. It just might take a bit more time. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Your brain, he's doing stuff for you while you're asleep.
Oh, well, definitely that. And I'd heard, I'm not sure of the validity of this. I could have possibly asked him. It'd be an interesting one. I'd heard that Danny Way at Mike Tanaski had actually given Danny and possibly other team members at that time basically, I don't know, audio learning tapes or something that they'd put on before they would go to sleep. Please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. But it'd sink, it was thought to sink in while you were sleeping.
Like programming.
Basically, programming of sorts, yeah. And so I would say there's relevance to that sort of, being programmed while you're sleeping, and there's speculations, dreams, lucid dreaming and stuff when you can control. That kind of thing.
I'm all about that programming and manifestation stuff. Like, I listen to these things on YouTube sometimes when I go to sleep, and it's just someone's voice talking at you, saying things like positive affirmations, like, I am. It's a bit hard. This is a bit cheesy, but some of it's cheesy, some of it's good. But it says things like, repetitively says, I am kind, I am hardworking, I treat people with respect, and just reaffirming that over and over as you fall off to sleep. You should go and check them out. Like, they're called positive affirmations on YouTube.
I know, I certainly know of that term, and I've looked into it before. And in fairness, and as you say, as cheesy as that sort of thing can sound, I do believe that there's some validity to that sort of thing. I mean, the psychology of things is pretty much everything. I mean, I was just listening to your cab interview on the way before we went skating, and he sort of said something, and I don't know of the stats or if he's correct. I mean, maybe he's probably looked into it, but he said that, 90% of anything is basically psychological and 10% is the physical. And I definitely think, I mean, to do anything, right? To do anything, if you want to skate or whatever, swim something, play whatever, it doesn't matter, play golf, play anything, you're thinking about it first. You're like, I've seen that. Maybe that's not a conscious thought. You've seen it. And you're like, I want to do that. And so you've got a skateboard in front of you. It's like, I'm going to step on this skateboard is what your brain is telling yourself first. The physical action isn't happening first. It's psychological first. You're thinking about it first, for sure. And I'd heard years ago, and then I was looking it up more recently as well, that some Russian scientists did studies into visualization, basically, and the athletes that did, to sum up, the athletes who did visualization beforehand, or just in training, more visualization training, the ones who did more visualization did better, basically. They were more successful in things than the people who only physically trained.
Yeah,
basically.
they did an experiment with basketball shooting. So
Right.
they had two control groups, and they had a group. And they're already professional basketballers, but they had a group who could only mentally rehearse, and then another group who could physically rehearse.
Yeah.
And apparently they're very similar. Very subjective as well, given the different ability levels. But I don't know. I think there's definitely something to it.
I think so. And I remember when I was skating vert X at Tarrant Point, that was when I was skating vert really intensively, pretty healthy and skating a lot. I remember being like sitting on the bench at first, doing some stretches and stuff before dropping in, and then just being able to drop in and do runs like straight away, because I was sort of thinking about it first and, getting in the zone before going into it. And so I definitely believe that the mental / psychological side is essentially the most important part, because without that, if you don't actually have that, you're not doing anything realistically. If you're not basically telling yourself that you can do whatever it is or something or other, you're not going to do it.
Well, that's what I found interesting about Cab. And, I've obviously looked up to him my whole life. But to hear him talk about how deeply insecure he was about his physical stature and his neck, how he's got like the...
scoliosis. Yeah.
Well, it's not scoliosis. He's got a birth defect where he's an oversized gland in his neck, and so it puts his neck on a tilt. And for me, it's always been, well, that's the Cab steez. He's got that, the style, and he's got this a birth deformity. It's not scoliosis though.
I'm sure he said it was scoliosis many years ago.
No, scoliosis is curvature of the spine.
I thought that's what he had, and that's the top outcome of that.
No, it's it's an oversized gland in his neck.
Well, I should know that because he was my favourite skater for like a long time.
That's what I mean.
Really.
But I said it's Cab steez, and he said so. But I was so insecure. He goes, I'm still insecure about how tall I am, and he said, so for me to become successful, he goes, I really had to battle those insecurities through rigorous reinforcement and self-belief. And he said it really manifested when I first got on Power Peralta, because it's like I got on, but then I felt like I had to really validate my role in the team. So it was very hard for him to get over it. And when it's sort of weird to listen to, because I've never thought of him like that. I thought, it's just natural ability. And
Well, I think they've all said that in any of their interviews. Most of the crew on the Bones Brigade have all said, I felt I had to validate myself. I didn't think I was worthy or whatever. Lance said that, I'm sure.
Has that ever driven you in your life, having this sense of and desire to validate yourself to people?
For sure. And case in point, goodness, today with Darren skating, my goodness, he's out of his mind at the moment. It's
Were you
incredible
comparing
respect.
yourself to Darren in the skate?
It's hard not to when you're like, whatever, when he's already, he's had his thing going with you already, and then just watching him going, he's only a couple of years younger than me and he's dead set tearing. So it's like, and he was skating there, I'm like, man, what am I doing compared to him? He's just absolutely ripping. It's insane.
You know what I reckon? Because I think Darren's getting better as he gets older.
Yeah, a few people have said that, and I would probably agree. I mean, I didn't free skate a lot with Darren a lot back in the day, but we did some comp stuff together and all that, and he was always good. And I remember the Horden Pavilion comp, maybe it was the one that Bart won, Bart Carnes that is, but I remember Darren was ripping. He could do a lot of really cool stuff. He was really good at some flips and bits and pieces, but yeah, he's always been sick. But I mean, obviously footage is heaps easier to get these days. It's more accessible, and he's been putting out clips, and obviously he puts in time because he's super technical. He's got a lot of tricks, definitely, and it's really cool to watch him still really being nimble and able to whack stuff out.
But I think it's the 1% differences. So, Darren does things. He does these little 1%, I call them. So, he skates with 2 ankle braces, even though he doesn't have ankle injuries.
Yeah.
So, for prevention of injury, he travels everywhere with a massage gun. So, he's making sure he warms up really adequately. Eats a really clean, healthy diet. He stretches every day, yoga. Uses CBD oil to reduce inflammation. And so he's just putting in the work that way as well.
And respect to that. And I'm sure that's a lot of look at how good he's skating. I assume that's having some effect. I mean, maybe it's placebo effect, which is obviously a super powerful thing in life, as has been scientifically proven. But I mean, whatever. He's obviously doing something right, and I'm sure all those things are adding up, for sure, because...
But it goes back to what you were saying before about mentality. It's like, who says that you can't get better at something at 47 years of age?
Well, yeah, why not? For sure. I agree with that. And I think that, definitely some injuries can take people out and do different things to the body. I think the healing capability is there. You can help that along, but perhaps there's things which are actually really hard to recover from, really. I'm sure there are. Of course there are. But, I think... I liken this to music, though. Take it to the music spectrum. I would say musicians definitely get better as they get older because it's not as physically hectic for you. I mean, maybe playing a guitar like that with your fingers in those positions actually would get quite straining, like RSI kind of stuff over the years. But maybe if you can somehow manage that side of it, I think you're going to get better at your craft like that and get much better and be able to wang it a bit more and hold it out and just...
Become a master.
Yeah, become a master, ultimately. And that's fascinating and really cool.
Do you think, because for a lot of your earlier days, you were a vert skater.
Yeah.
Do you think that's given you some longevity? The fact that you have been bailing to your knees, things like that? Or has it caused some long-term injury for you?
Well, I'm not sure about that. Only because I was listening to Andrew Reynolds on Hawk vs. Wolf the other day, and they were talking about it because Ellis and Tony are vert dudes, and Andrew is obviously street guy, and they were sort of deliberating over which is the worst one to be bailing down stuff. And I think they basically agreed that bailing down massive things is, like on street skating, is not going to be good for your knees and the whole jarring effect. But, falling... Yeah, I would say transition's definitely probably more mellow on the body generally. But I mean, you take a good one on transition, you're feeling it.
Well, that's the big difference too. Like, yeah, it can be less impact, but when you have a bad slam on a vert ramp, it can be really bad.
It's proper. You can go from top to the bottom, and that's like usually, but not necessarily always. Like handrail stuff, you're often collecting the rail on the way down, so you got things slowing down that speed to hit the ground. You know what I mean? But on vert, if you hang blatantly, you're just going straight to the bottom, particularly on the semi-smaller vert ramps without any much transition, small transitions. It's a quick bang to the bottom, 10 foot. And if you've got that momentum of 4, 5, 6 foot bigger air before that, that's a whole lot of momentum going down. So you're taking some big ones. Probably, though, I'd say overall impact, like repetitive impact stuff, is going to be heavier street skating from like feet up through knees, up through, pelvis, torso, everything. That jarring effect is definitely pretty hectic. But I mean, Andrew's skating amazingly too for being, mid-40s as well.
That's the 1%ers, man.
He's absolutely, and then there's that side of it. Jamie Thomas is still skating pretty well for, he's jumped down a lot of stuff in his life too.
Chris Markovic, 50.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you
He's not going quite as hard as those guys, but he's ripping though. I've seen some clips of him.
But just some of his recent clips have been even better. Like he does skate this one skate park in Florida a lot, and that's where all his footage comes out of. So he's not really in the streets. Yeah,
sure. Whereas, Andrew and Jamie maybe to a lesser extent, but I don't follow them religiously. But, they're definitely, it's like, wow, you guys are still holding it down pretty well for street skating. It's pretty amazing. And Jamie's talking about, the interview on 9 Club with him and Cole, talking about putting out a street part, for 50 tricks for 50, and he wants to do it properly. And I'm like, wow, what's that going to be? Because if you want to do it sort of properly, there'll be some stuff in there.
100%.
For sure, that definitely.
He's ripping. So let's just go back. So your first job was at the surf shop, skate shop.
I just want to go back to to the comparison sort of thing, or feeling pressured through to other people.
Yep.
Someone who I should have mentioned first in that sort of thing, particularly like I was the first team rider on Juice. Probably a bit of nepotism there. This guy's a good friend and was a good friend up until that stage.
You deserved it. What are you talking about?
Well, thank you. But then Skunk got on. Jeff Williams, and it's like, wow. I mean, I know some people might debate it, but I would still probably say that, relatively speaking, he'd probably be Australia's best all-around skateboarder that's happened. He was amazing at vert. Like, he did really well in Bolarama. He could do a bunch of vert tricks. He got Lord of the Bowl at Belco, and then there was his street stuff, and he was not afraid. And he was pretty tech as well, and that his parts in all of the videos, the Juice videos, were amazing. And Jeff is just a freak, And so when he's on the same team, you're like, well, there's Jeff, and what can I do compared to that? Because he was just. Well,
how do you overcome those feelings? Like, I mean, I get it too. I get it. I get it when I skate with Darren a lot. I start comparing myself to him, like, oh well, why can't I do what he's doing? And then I feel insecure about my ability and whatever. But how do you overcome it? And how did you overcome it back in the day then? Like,
well, I guess I just...
What stopped you from telling Guy Miller to kick you off Juice? Like, I'm not good enough. Jeff Williams, you don't need me.
Ego, probably. Wanting to cling on. Like, I can still do something. But no, I think I had... I was a bit older than Jeff. Not much, in fairness, I don't think. But I had my own thing. I did different stuff, and Jeff was just a different skater. You know what I mean? I mean, he was just Jeff doing his thing.
Yeah.
He got, he was getting pretty well paid by Juice at the time and all of that, which I wasn't, or most of the rest of the team wasn't. But in fairness, Jeff was so prolific and amazing. Like, it was incredible,
So much coverage too.
So much coverage. He was holding it down, and so rightly so, he was getting properly sorted out. And
was it him and Davo getting the paychecks for Juice?
Probably, yeah. Davo probably would have been as well. And Davo, of course, then I was part of getting Davo on and being street skating in Martin Place at the pit. It's like, do you want to ride for Juice? Would you want to ride for Juice? It's like, yeah, whatever. And then, got Davo on there, and that was amazing, because there was no real clothing stuff going on here. And, Guy was into it, and Core, a part of the scene, and all of that. And so Davo was down, and so it just started Juice off being this, pretty good company, just having good riders. But there was access there, because, like I say, there wasn't really the clothing side of things happening here, and that was part. Like, I helped. Guy started in '93, and I was going to the States, and I got clothes from over there that he would basically rip patterns from and stuff, because nothing was available here, and so he went ahead and made it, and then it just took off, and much props and respect to Guy, because I remember him telling me, I want to pay people, and I was like, really? Can you afford that or something or other? Is that something? He's like, I want to do it, and I want to do it properly and pay people. And obviously Juice was sort of picking up and blowing up. It really blew up for a bunch of years there. And he wanted to invest the money well, and he was out in the streets looking at everyone skating, and he was sorting out a lot of people and helping a lot of people directly, indirectly, by making the videos and putting other people who weren't even on Juice in the videos, And so he was very open-minded about it all, just hyped on the scene. And I think that's why Juice got a lot of the support that it did, again, because there wasn't a lot of competition. But it was doing things the right way, basically. And so, it just kept unfolding like that, because it was from the heart. It was all from the heart, It really was.
Yeah. And then he even just sort of, I think he told me once, he just, became a skate photographer just out of necessity as well.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Because, wanted to shoot photos of his riders and just work it out. And he did. And he used to take great photos.
Yeah, really good photos for sure. And he was just dedicated. I mean, part of that came about from his injury, which anyone can listen to on his interview with Shannon previously. He talks about that, and that basically gave him the time, and then he created his own impetus to want to get out there and participate and be involved and put it all out there and be proactive towards skateboarding and making it happen, because he loved it, and because he was so involved in the scene, that in itself gave Juice the credibility to where people were psyched on it,
Yeah.
And then he started paying people, and then SMP came around, and then basically, to my understanding, and again, I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but Guy starting to pay people, and relatively speaking properly, as much as it could be at the time, created impetus for other companies to have to pull out and give money as well. And so it really pushed things forwards in Australia as far as the scene was concerned, because it was like, no, let's do this and let's make it worthwhile. People smashing themselves for it all, and I don't think a lot of people know that, and think a lot of respect for making that happen, and not just taking the money for himself, but putting it back in and really giving a shit and wanting to progress and evolve, and Australia to have its own thing, outside of America.
Yeah, it's good motivation for skaters to push harder and progress. And I think at that time too, Australian skaters were really trying to establish themselves on the world scale. But I think we've done it since then and continue to do it. But
big time.
It's so hard. But I was just thinking as you were saying all that stuff, I've got so much respect for entrepreneurs. Anyone that's brave enough to go out on their own and have an idea, a conceived idea, and then follow through with it, and then stick with it until it's done. How long did Juice go for? Easy, 15 years?
Yeah, effectively that.
So it started 93, went into the early 2000s, didn't it?
Early to mid. It started dropping off towards the latter 2000s. It went into the markets, the Asian markets as such, and, it was just getting ripped off left, right and centre. And, things dropped out. The street sort of fashion side of things changed up a bit. Clothes were getting more readily available.
So I got bootlegged, hey?
It got heavily bootlegged.
Amazing.
And
here's a funny story. I was in Coles in Newcastle the other day, and I seen a 15-year-old girl, probably 15-year-old, wearing a Juice jumper.
Damn,
a Juice
really?
hoodie with the embroidered OG Juice logo
Crazy.
with the little circle J thing.
Really?
And I was like, wow, man.
Did it look old?
I almost wanted to take a photo, but I was like, that's a bit creepy to take a photo because I want to send it to Guy and go, look, man, still going.
Did it look old? Or was
It did. It did. I
okay,
don't know
so
if it was
it
an
wasn't-
OG one, but it could have been like an OG bootleg one or something like that.
That's wild. Okay, yeah, that's super interesting.
Isn't
for
it
sure.
interesting, hey?
Yeah, definitely.
Made an impact. How involved were you in regards to that company's image and marketing strategy?
I wouldn't say so much marketing strategy as such. That was all very much Guy. He was the creative there, essentially. Richard Ramsey, Guy's partner, he was, essentially the business guy and took care of all that side of things. And then Guy, I think Rat did designs as well, but Guy was the heavy designer and photographer, filmer, like all of the creative marketing side for the most part. And so I wasn't really involved in that. I mean, maybe myself and other team riders, like I think Davo and I came up with the idea for the mesh shorts. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe that was all Davo or something, but they sold ridiculously well. But they were really good to skate in at the time. I remember skating, they were just super light, but yeah.
90s fresh, man.
Yeah, totally 90s fresh. Hilarious, for sure. So, he would take teams' ideas and put it out there or whatever, but it was mostly, I think, Guy's vision, generally speaking, to my memory. But so I was just, I just did some team managing stuff, like not necessarily like the choosing of the team as such. Like Guy was a good talent ID kind of guy, but I was just behind the scenes, like calling everyone and making sure they all had packages. I could work in there 1 or 2 days a week for a while there and just sorting everyone out and organise some tours and, would make the photo incentives happen for people and just take care of all the... Oh, I did filming, yeah. I filmed pretty much mostly all of the first Juice video and the Juice promo video. And then I filmed probably about half of V2. And that's kind of when I decided that filming was too intensive and I wanted to skate more, basically, because it was fun filming and it was great, like catching all the stuff of other people doing things, but I just realised that was detracting from my skating because you get too involved in that in a session and I wanted to skate more, so I pulled back from filming a bit at that stage, but it was super fun doing that.
Was it pre-digital? Like you were using tape still?
Yeah, yeah.
What were you filming on? Hi 8?
Yeah, it probably was high 8 at the time, I would say, yeah. Super high 8s or whatever after a while. Yeah, that would have been V2, maybe V1.
So way more labour intensive when it sort of came to filming and then, retrieving the footage, all the tricks and sifting through footage and stuff like that.
Funny story, that one. I've got, pre that, I made my own skateboard video.
What was it called?
Called Skateboard Hit. And so on the cover it basically had skateboard hit, but like the skateboard after the S was really small and the S was big, and then the hit was after that, so it was basically shit.
Oh, is that Ty?
Yeah,
it's a bit naughty, man.
I know, right? The reason that one came about was before the Big Brother shit video. I mean, so I was like innovative.
Were you trying to be controversial?
Probably. I mean, it was skating. It was ghetto, so it didn't matter,
But I've always seen you to have this like real clean-cut image.
Oh,
But I don't think you do. I think
I
you're a bit
diverge from the
undercover.
course once in a while, I guess. But so I filmed that on my old boss's video camera, which I borrowed for a month in '93. And John Winning, senior of Winning Appliances, and now his son, John Jr., has taken over Appliances Online.
There you go.
And I worked there for a while, and that funded my first few trips to the States, working there.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. But yeah, he was basically my step uncle, if you will. And so... we were close-ish and had a good relationship. So he lent me his video camera.
No way.
And I filmed my skateboard video over a month, and I think it was just on weekends basically because I was working during the week, and that had Chris Holland in it and his best mate at the time, Scott Gibson, and then Alex Smith was in that as well. He had a part, and then I had a part, and then a few others, Regan Ironmonger, and then Scooter. There was a few of the locals, and it also had Mulhall and Jake Brown and Jason Ellis when he was up here from Melbourne, skating the vert ramp at Bondi. So it had some crew in there.
Which vert ramp would you say really developed you?
Before I go there,
Yeah,
I'll just say
no
back
worries.
to the video, the actual physical side of the question. So I must have transferred all that footage. That would have been on a C. What was it? It was a mid-sized tape. So it wasn't quite high 8 at that stage, but it was some other format. But it wasn't VHS. But then I literally edited that video together on 2 VHSs.
I was going to say, let's go through the process. Like, so you'd get the tape, you'd find the trick you want, then how would you get the trick out of the tape?
I must have recorded that from the camera onto a VHS tape.
Okay.
I guess, and then all the ones that I wanted. And then it was then probably going from that VHS recorder into the other VHS recorder to create the body of the video itself. That must have been how it happened. I don't remember particularly. That was just in my bedroom at home. And then my dad had a friend who worked at he had basically connections to a video processing or editing setup, and I took it in there for the final edit and to add the music. And he added all that stuff, and I think I did the titling. I had some super dodgy program where I could do some titling in it. Most hectically pixelated stuff for everyone's names and whatever, but then I did a final edit, a little cleanup, and added the music at this editing suite, and that was it. And I think I made 10 copies, and I rode around the streets and sold a few copies literally in the street, and then gave the other
just
copies
to people
the
in the
boys.
street?
Yeah.
Like skaters?
Yeah. I had a couple of people bought them just for like $10 each or something. Like it was a
Would you proposition them and go, hey, like, do you want to buy this skate video?
Basically that, yeah.
And they'd be like, what's it about? You're like, oh, it's me and it's got these people in it. And
yeah.
And did you sell it to any surf or skate shops?
No, I don't think so. I was just so clueless as to the whole thing. I probably should have made more copies. I've got a copy of it around.
There's an entrepreneur in you, isn't there?
Somewhere there, and I never really thought I'd be in sales or anything. But yeah, I guess so. I mean, isn't there's sort of an entrepreneur in all of us in some ways. We push ourselves.
I don't think there is. I think people are really happy to follow, but a lot of people have ideas, but then are too scared to initiate them.
No, there's that too, for sure. But yeah, I was just hyped. I was just hyped on our crew, and I think I was just mostly hyped on Chris because he was ripping.
He was a sick surfer as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Or probably still is, I don't know.
Yeah. He doesn't surf or skate really these days. He's semi-called it, semi-not. He fluctuates. But yeah, he was amazing at anything he did. He could DJ really well, like mixing up and stuff. Really? He could break dance like properly, and I just seen him do all sorts of things over time. What I loved about Chris is he was super pure, and he did things literally because he wanted to do them, and that really stood out. And I remember one day he asked me when he was skating really well, and industry was going on, and he's like, could you get me sponsored or something? And I sort of said, well, because I know him quite well at this stage. He was one of the first people that I hung out with and was, like I said, influenced by, but then got to know him as a friend and hung out with him. And he's probably the longest running friend I've still got, and I still, talk to him to this day and stuff. And he's definitely been influential in a lot of ways. But yeah, he asked me, could you get me sponsored? And I was like, well, you'll have to like shoot videos and probably go in comps and stuff. And you just kind of look down for a couple seconds and then look back up at me. He's like, nah, don't worry about it. I'll just buy stuff instead. And I was just like, that is so you, and I love that. I have so much respect for that. He literally did things because he wanted to do them. And that was it. There was for no... Basically, he
wasn't looking for validation.
Yeah, and he considered things outside of that impure. Like it was an impurity as such. You know what I mean? Like he just kept purist. A full purist, and I respect that. And I've seen him do some amazing stuff skateboarding. He was.
I respect it, but is it sustainable? I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's that, and I'll leave it there. But yeah, he was one of the first people in Australia to do McTwist, if not the first. That's controversial as to whether, like Mick said the other day, that he thinks Danny Van did it first, and then
He did say that, yeah.
There's Johnny McGrath is in the question.
I
as
thought
well.
it was Gary Valentine, to be honest.
No.
He's way off. He had a sick one.
He did.
Did you ever have a McTwist in your repertoire? Did it ever happen for you?
No, it never happened, unfortunately. But Chris had the first published sequence of one in Skating Life magazine in the Something Else section in the back, second issue of Skating Life.
Amazing.
And Scott Needham took those photos.
At Fairfield Vert Ramp?
No, at Curl Park when it had the brown surface.
No
it was
way.
a long time ago. And that was a proper McTwist and decent, you know. And then, you know, after that, 15, 16 years later, 98, 99, he then, you know, handrails being done, but I'm pretty sure at the time he then went on to do, I would say, the biggest handrail done in Australia at the time, which is the North Sydney 16.
Was that a backside 50-50?
Backside 50-50, which got on the cover of Australian Skateboarding as well.
Isn't that insane?
It was insane, you know, and he was literally going to a dance party that day, and he's like, I want to go do this rail. And he thought it was a 9-stair, this one that he wanted to do. And we went and checked it out. He's like, oh, it's not like I thought. No, I don't want to do that one. And so we cruised around the streets for a bit more. It was me, him and Guy. Guy was shooting and I was filming. And then we walked past the 16. He's like, I'll do this one. and this is literally like 9 or 10 in the morning. And we're just like, are you sure? And he's like, yep, sweet. And then he did a few like jump on frontside 50-50s, like tail grab jump on. And then took him 3 goes to do the backside 50-50. And he got smoked on the first 2, which are in Juice V2.
V2, I remember.
Yeah. And then he just made a hammering out of that thing too, because that thing was slick as. And I'm pretty sure, as I say, that was the biggest handrail that had been done in Australia at the time, or at least the deathest, because the thing was pretty steep and nasty. And I heard rumours, again, can be validated by others, that Mumford went there. He eventually frontside 5-0'd it, but I heard he went there after that and didn't do it the first time that he went there. But then
didn't try it because it was too big, or just
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think he tried it.
Wouldn't try it.
To my understanding, didn't try it. But then he went back and front 5-0'd, which is sick. You know, I mean, Mumford's definitely up to that, obviously.
So he went home and slept on it, and his brain worked it out, got over the fear overnight, and then went back.
I don't think it was overnight. I think it was over time. But that's just showed, you know, it was a gnarly rail. And then so Chris, you know, one of the first to do McTwists on vert, and then it was a gnarly vert skater. And then it was just a gnarly street skater. He could do anything and just wasn't afraid. He just loved doing it. It was great.
What genre of skateboarding do you feel like you fit into the most?
I mean, I guess transition stuff for the most part, because I started street skating. Like I literally started street skating, and I had no idea.
So I never really knew that about you. I always thought you were the vert guy.
No, well, and then once I discovered skate parks and that sort of thing, and then, well, I'll tell you, at the start, I didn't know what it was, and then I was just street skating around on my brother's boards, loved it, ended up getting my own skateboard through doing a paper run around the hood, bought my own reflex skateboard, and then, yeah, it must have been on that board, and then I was skating with a friend at my local school, Lara Public School, with an old school friend, Bede Murphy, and then he got down real low, grabbed the front side rail, you know, with his backhand, basically indie front side, whatever, and then just laid it out, put his front hand on the ground, did a layback slide on the ground, and I remember vividly thinking, oh my goodness, you can actually do stuff on skateboards, not just roll on them, you know, and that was it. I was like, right. This is insane. I just want to do this, you know, and then that just led into seeing all the pro boards up at Vic Ford's Bondi Junction Surf Shop or whatever, and I literally didn't know that the pro models were people's names. Like I just thought they were just weird, abstract, made-up names on the board.
So you said your first board was a Caballero, Steve Caballero.
Yeah.
You didn't consider that was someone's name. You just thought that was just like...
I don't know that by the time I actually got that board, because I had my reflex for like quite a long time, I So I'm not exactly sure of the timeline there. Somewhere in around this time, I did see the Bones Brigade video show.
Yeah.
And that's when it all hit me. I was like, oh my goodness, there's actually super stuff going on here. And
Did that
there's
board
actually
have
people?
Did that board have Bonite in it?
No. It was
pre
it was
that?
pre. Yeah, not long pre, but it was pre. And yeah, that's when I actually realised, oh my goodness, all those names on those boards are these people. I had no idea about that before. And that gives me my own little bit of self-satisfaction in that I got into it because I enjoyed the art of skateboarding, the act of skateboarding, over it being a scene or anything. I had no idea
You
about
weren't
that
trying
stuff.
to emulate someone.
No, just wanted to do it because it was super fun.
If you could emulate someone, who would you consider maybe skateboarders that you were really influenced by and wanted to be like? You know, whether they're Australian or American pros, or who would you regard as faves?
Well, I guess, yeah, definitely at first Chris Holland for sure, because it was just super amazing. Like he was definitely, I saw other people skating at the same time, and he was, I would say, and people might not like me for this, but he was technically the better guy at the time. Like other dudes were really good at skating for sure, but he was just so together technically and into flying high and, you know, did twists and he just did, technical stuff. So Chris for sure. And then sort of after that, first real like slap upside the head was probably Danny, I would say.
Anyway.
Questionable era Danny. Yeah, for sure. And particularly when he came just pre-Plan B, the start of Plan B, when he came to came and did the Darling Harbour demos 91, I think it was late 91, and they had the comp there and stuff, and Tuss was there as well, and Jake and a whole bunch of crew, and Ben, of course. And just Danny's style there was just, it changed everything, basically. He was tapping his airs as opposed to hitting the coping. And
he really ollied into his
he
airs.
really ollied, and he was olling into those things 7 foot out. It was insane. And the next 6 months, me and Bart and everyone down at Bondi were just trying to learn that, and it was such a big change from hitting the coping. It was torture, actually. Finally got there, but it's certainly not to the extent that what Danny was, and, you know, just the modern method, bang, rock to fakie thing. And then I remember Tuss doing the 360 Indy, and I'd thought about backside revert stuff at this time. Not that I ever did a backside revert on vert. I tried it, but I was too scared. Probably
backside decker revert.
Any backside revert, because frontside reverts were happening. They were pretty popular for the few years before that, you know. And it's like, oh, that's like, you know, revert going in backwards. And I thought about backside revert stuff, but yeah, I never manned up to do it. And then I saw Tuss do a 360 Indy, like about 2 foot out. I was like, oh my god, there's a backside revert. And that was sick, amazing. And then not long after that, Danny must have just gone, right, here you go. And he just did like a 5 foot fully overturned Indy nose bone and backside, and then just dropped into fakie, and I was just like, what the hell was that? It was just insane. And he was doing flips and stuff, and then Questionable came out, and he had the full street part in that, and wasn't afraid, and could just do so much stuff.
That was so good. Like his street part was so good, considering as a vert skater.
Yeah,
but when he backside 360 that double flight, what was that?
San Diego Sports
conventions
Arena.
Yeah. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, it was insane. He was hammering too. He was going so fast.
Yeah, and he didn't just fall off that thing. He ollied off that. He ollied into that 360 so proper. And
no, that on the rails and everything. And I just really liked his style then. He was just so powerful yet together, and it was life-changing, that stuff for sure.
Do you think it's cool how skating's going full circle again, and there's a lot more like ATVs, like all-terrain skaters now again? Like, you know, I went through a real phase of like you're either a street guy or a vert guy or just a training guy. But it's really good to see that, you know, everyone's like these newer skaters are trying to skate everything.
I love it. It's really cool, because I think, why limit yourself? I mean, it was pretty disappointing to not name any names, not that I could necessarily remember so much, but in the 90s, dudes would come out and do, you know, they were the pro guys, and they'd come out and do tours and demos, and they could barely frontside ollie a hip at a skate park, and you're like, what? What's going on here? you're a pro or something or other. Like, at least be able to ollie the hip, and they would just try some really hard tech trick for the whole demo and maybe make it at the end or not or whatever. And you're just like, well, this is what? You know, I just wanted to see things being made. It didn't have to be the techest trick. Just ollie the hip and cruise around and just show us how you skate the park, you know, and then do your tech trick. Like, I love seeing tech tricks. I love it all. Yeah. I really love it all. I love seeing
I seen street tie today, you know. You know what kind of spun me out about you today? Like, when you did a frontside nose slide on that ledge, I was like, just didn't expect it. I kind of was okay when you're doing, like, some stuff on the flat banks because I'm like, oh, well, it's got a bit of tranny, like, you know. Sure. But then when you're like that, and that ledge was the high ledge, I'm like, oh, he just ollied off flat to a frontside nose slide.
Fun fact.
Street tie.
I had a double page spread of a frontside nose slide on a pretty decently sized sort of flat bar thing against a wall in
double page?
Newtown. Yeah. When you could do that without
mag?
flipping into it. ASM, of course, under Gordo. Like, of course. But yeah, guy took that photo. And it was a pretty cool shot underneath or whatever. That's right. Yeah, like I could do frontside nose slides like pretty decently over time. Yeah, I love a trick. And, you know, some people can make it look really good. Yeah. It's very photogenic, for sure.
It is, especially when it's really like they're really twisted into it and pointing their toe. And
like a front board or whatever, kind of back lips, sort of the same kind of things, you know.
It's funny you mention the backside revert thing, though. Like, just anything like, backside revert is so scary because I've seen so many people get messed up on them. I'll never forget, isn't in memory, I've seen Wayne Taylor get really messed up on a vert ramp trying to backside decker revert. I'll never forget it, and he just slammed so hard.
Yeah, Wayne could do some backside revert stuff, and he wasn't afraid. He loved it. Yeah. He was good at it.
Bondi mini ramp?
Yeah. Killed that thing.
Best mini ramp ever made?
I mean, we definitely had a lot of fun sessions on that thing. It had its time.
How do you reflect on that era? Just nothing but good memories?
Just nothing but good memories, yeah. It was amazing, and particularly when they put that finished plywood on it. That was insane. It changed the whole ramp, just 6 sheets covering the whole ramp, massive sheets. And anyway, just that whole time with Bart, Skunk, Waynos, Stuart Canane at the time, and then, you know, the Queensland dudes came down, Curry and Dion and Boglio and Christian West, and all those guys came and joined in the sessions. And yeah, it was just obviously an amazing spot being at Bondi Beach, you know, so the vibe was already good because you're at the beach and had this pretty perfect mini ramp, which was really good. I mean, it was big. It was 6 solid foot or something or other. So it was big-ish and a bit intimidating somehow, but you had the vert ramp there, so you go onto the mini from the vert. It was like it was good, a good adjustment. You can be like, yeah, I can smash this thing. And it was steep enough to do like proper sized ollies and kind of ollie grab airs. I mean, you could call them airs, I guess. You know, it's hard to call it airs when it's not vert, when you're actually launching into things. But yeah.
But the training was big enough.
It was big enough, and it was steep enough to launch properly. I saw Alan Peterson do like 5-6 foot high frontside ollies on that thing.
Could just fly, hey?
Proper fly. That was amazing watching him on it. But the local crew could seriously hold it down on that ramp, and there was 6 sessions. It was super fun, for sure.
And not just any beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
not
the
just any
beach.
beach. It was amazing times, for sure.
Yeah, it feels like Bondi really set the tone for skate parks by the beach, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess it did.
Kind of did, because I remember then there was Maroubra.
Yeah, Maroubra came about in 2000, but Bondi, they built the vert ramp. Like, I was fighting for parks here since, you know, part of the whole kids at council kind of thing since 86, 87 or something like that.
Did you have a part in getting the vert ramp built at Bondi?
Technically speaking, yeah.
Did you were you advocating for that?
Yeah,
no
sure.
way, dude.
So, yeah, and then they built the vert ramp. That was like 89, you know, so it was a long time ago that there was a ramp on the beach here, you know, and when it was first built, the coping set was absolutely terrible with the transition and stuff, and it was narrow-ish, but it was wide enough, and it was a congregation point because it was a new vert ramp, and everyone came down there, you know, the Cronulla dudes, the Woodies, like everyone came over here and skated, so it was a sick scene.
It's the first time I've ever seen you. I have a memory.
Cool.
Caught the train from Nowra to skate the ramp. We got here in the morning because we used to catch the 5:18 from Nowra.
Yeah.
And we went straight, you know, like train to Central and then train to Bondi Junction and then bus to the beach. And big mission, so, you know, we get here about probably 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, like travel for almost 3 hours, and then I'll probably about that long. And then I remember it turned up and it was early in the morning and like there it is, and we're standing up on the car park level to look at it. I was like, there it is. And you were just skating it by yourself first thing in the morning and you were ripping. Yep.
Wow.
And
That's surprising. I wasn't a big fan of morning skating back then to my memory.
Yeah, dude, I remember. So
I had some good times on that ramp for sure. I learned a lot of things on it. So
why'd they get rid of it? No one was skating it.
They didn't want to maintain it, basically.
Because it got pretty rough, huh?
Yeah, it got really rough. So what happened was the bottom of the tranny, it's a funny story, this one, maybe. The bottom of the transition got really badly damaged, as bottom of transitions of most ramps do or did when it's wood, and because all the boards are getting thrown down, it's main impact point. And so instead of replacing whole sheets, the council just literally cut a strip across the ramp on either side and just put little strips like 1.5 foot wide.
Like cut out the bad bit and just patched it.
Basically patches, but across the whole width of the ramp. And that was just up the beginning of the transition. And there's no way you're making a small piece of wood like a foot or two wide sit into the transition adequately enough to make the transition perfect. So it was just this massive kink at the bottom of that. Same thing, and it just made it basically unskateable. And at the same time, wheels were really small as well, so you weren't rolling over it that well. And then they'd built the mini ramp by then, and so we just skated the mini ramp all the time and probably went to Mona or something. Maybe Mona probably had a steel surface sometime in that period as well, even though that kind of had a kink in it as well, which was pretty annoying. So I'd go, back to the sort of street skating thing. I'd go street skating for 6 months at a time and then go vert skating for 6 months at a time or something like that. Get bored of one, go to the other, switch back, whatever, when I get inspired to go do something again. Maybe another Plan B video came out. Maybe you want to go skate vert again or something or other through that time. So, yeah, so anyway, when they did that with the ramp, I remember we all got very annoyed at council, shall I say, for not wanting to maintain it properly. And I mean, it got worn out, so it required constant maintenance, and I think they got over that. And you couldn't put a steel surface on it being on the beach because it'd just get rusty, right? Yeah. And so we were just like, right. And myself and Macca and Bart and maybe someone else, we just got in there with crowbars or something rather than rip these patches out. And this reporter was there at the time. And he came over and was like, what are you guys doing? Like, whatever. And we're like, whatever story we told, we probably didn't articulate it very well, but we're basically having a whinge about council not wanting to fix the ramp properly. And then a couple of days later, I don't know what paper it was in, but I've got the clipping. Literally the headline was, "Too easy, so they tore it up." And it was a photo of our legs. He omitted our heads out of the photo.
'Cause you were minors.
Probably something like that, or we didn't give him permission to do whatever. Yeah. And then he wrote a story about us being unhappy about the ramp or something or other, so we vandalized it or something along those lines. I was like, man, seriously? And pretty bummed.
What were you actually trying to do? Repair it yourself?
No. Definitely not that.
Or just rip it out so they actually had to fix it properly?
Pretty much. It was a protest of them not fixing it. I mean, obviously, like I say, we weren't articulating ourselves very well. We weren't very good at communication with council.
So there was some rebelliousness there.
I would say so, yeah, for sure. We were bummed. We wanted to skate the vert ramp. We really wanted to skate the vert ramp, but it was just unskateable. So,
would you describe yourself as a rebel or someone that likes to play by the rules?
Interesting question. I mean, I would say coming from that generation, skateboarding was rebellious in itself, realistically, But it's funny, back to my mum's house in this neighbourhood, right? All the other neighbours, we lived up the end of this one path, and there are all these other houses off this path, 4 other houses off this path, and there was the doctor and the lawyer and the, architect or whatever, all these well qualified people at their jobs and stuff. And then there was us up the end, the Colings, with my mum, who was basically an environmental activist of sorts. Yeah, and she did volunteer work at a place called Total Environment Centre in the Rocks. And that was basically what she did, looking after 3 kids. And then there was my older sister who kind of had hippie-esque tendencies, and now she's a yoga teacher and stuff, so sort of followed through with that side of things. And there was my brother who was, the blonde curly-headed surfer kid or whatever, and he was, I guess, a bit rebellious, and he had skateboards, and there was always skateboards around and stuff. And then it was me, the skateboarder, and yeah, we didn't, we were definitely the odd ones out in that whole neighbourhood. And that was, I don't know if I got that at the time so much, but in hindsight, I can definitely see it that way, so...
I'm sure you were friendly, though. You weren't like...
Oh, definitely. I got along with all those kids.
You weren't that feral family who lived down the end of the street.
Certainly not. Like, most of the kids of the other families, they were sort of mine, and then the older ones, maybe my brother and sister's ages, and we all got along. But I definitely, we played when I was young, before skateboarding days and stuff. It was a really nice spot. It had this whole garden-y kind of thing going and lawn, and so we'd play cricket there together and stuff with all the neighbours. Like, it was all cool, but we were definitely like... But that was, again, that was pre-skateboarding and stuff, me sort of thing, So, and then just as things evolved, turned into the skateboarder, and then I had the skateboard ramp and all of that. We were definitely the odd ones out in the neighbourhood, They played the more traditional school sports and whatever, and then we did the other things.
Yeah. How old were you when your parents separated?
7.
Did it have an impact on you, you think?
Yeah, for sure. But they were really amazing about it and really tried to hide it from me, particularly.
In what way? Hide it from you.
Hide the hard part. Like, they didn't do custody games or battles or any of that stuff, and yeah, I'm very grateful for that. It hurt me at the time. I remember asking my mum, "Are you guys going to get back together or whatever?" That sort of thing, But obviously that wasn't on the cards, but I couldn't understand that then. But then I think, and particularly I only know this specific timeline information post then, but after a couple of years, they ended up hanging out together because my mum's really into art. My dad's an artist, and they love discussing art and politics and all sorts of things. And obviously they were, they had to get along because of me, basically.
Not your brother and sister?
No, well...
Were they just older?
My older brother and sister had a different father to myself previously. And then it was my mum and dad, basically. And then now I have my little sister with my dad's partner post then, and they're still together to this day. And yeah, anyway, so yeah, they got along for many years, and everyone would hang out. My dad with his current partner, they'd hang out. We'd have dinners and gatherings and stuff. It was all very ultimately amicable, and I'm very grateful for them putting the hurtful stuff aside and making it so it was as least impactful on me and essentially the others as much as possible, because I think it could have potentially been much worse, because I've obviously seen that play out with other families before. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful for that. It definitely affected me. I don't know how deeply and subconsciously, psychologically, in my relationships and stuff post that, but, who knows? Hard to quantify that.
Yeah, it would be. It is. I mean, I've been in the same situation. I am curious as to how it might have impacted you, but then I guess you kind of answered that and said maybe it's impacted on your ability to be in long-term relationships? Potentially.
Hard to quantify. I'm not sure. Could be the relationship itself. Could be me.
And it takes two.
It takes two.
But I really respect that, what you said about your parents, like, putting the needs of you before themselves and just making it, making sure they got along for in your best interest, having no conflict. I think it's a really good message, because let's face it, so many people are going through those situations in our society.
Sure.
So, And, some do it better than others.
Definitely. I never saw them have a fight or anything.
Yeah.
You know,
and you
that
still
sort of stuff.
maintained, like, positive relationships with both of them, and you feel close to both of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rad.
No, definitely.
So,
Very thankful for my whole upbringing and stuff. It was I would say I had a pretty blessed upbringing.
wow. You don't hear that often. You don't, like, I'm finding that, a lot of people will say that they had trauma in their childhood for various reasons, and they've spent a lot of their adult life trying to work that out.
Sure.
Trying to get to the core of it.
I've heard that a lot, definitely, and I really can't say that I had that. We didn't always have, like, we lived in great neighbourhoods, don't get me wrong, and all of that, but there was never heaps of liquid cash around. Like, I had that first cab for over a year. It wasn't like you can just get a new skateboard or whatever. It was like it has to be basically my birthday's in November, and so it's close to Christmas. So, for the next few years, to get a new skateboard deck, then it was a combined birthday and Christmas present.
Gotcha.
Basically that sort of thing. So yeah, we weren't super spoilt, but we did have nice surrounds.
Yes.
And everything, which I'm very grateful for. But there was always love there, and I always felt that, and
Rad.
never felt ostracized or unloved or unwanted, any of that. Like, there was always much love around, and I'm grateful.
The kids in your area, were they kids that did have families with a lot of liquid cash? And did you ever feel less than? Because let's face it, it's quite a wealthy area.
Sure.
Were you ever comparing yourself to some of those?
I don't think so, to be honest. Not really. Like, the guys next door, they had video games and stuff which we didn't have, but I didn't really care that much. We had music. Music was important growing up, and we had a record player, and my brother and sister bought records and bits and pieces, and so I don't know. And then I was just interested in other stuff. I had the backyard, and I did outdoors stuff, so I'd sometimes go over to the neighbours and play the video games and stuff.
Yeah.
But I never felt like that. Never felt jealous or envious of them, and they didn't seem to have ridiculous amounts of stuff. They had very nice houses, and I hung out in their houses and stuff, but it wasn't like they were just getting things left, right, and centre or anything like that.
Can we talk about Adam Luxford? So you
Sure.
rode for his company Control. Mm-hmm. When did you meet him? How old were you?
Good question. First time I met him, like just literally met him at all, was probably 89-ish, Fairfield vert ramp time, sometime around then. But that would have literally been in sort of maybe saying hello to him at Curb and Coping, John Finlay's skate shop at the time, something like that. And funny little story there, I remember he was riding for Omni at the time. I'm not sure how his timeline of riding for Hardcore and Vision Streetwear and all of that stuff played out, but he was riding for Omni somewhere in there. And him, I think, and Steve Sargent and Mitch Newell had shapes on Omni. I don't recall graphics. I think they had graphics, but they had shapes. And I really wanted the Adam Luxford board. And my dad ordered it from Curb and Coping, from Finn at Curb and Coping. And then Kerry, I don't know what was going on with Kerry at the time. But
Kerry from Omni?
Yeah, Kerry from Omni. Much love for Kerry, though, definitely. And because I rode for Omni for a little while too. Just the board never came, like, for ages. And my dad had ordered it, maybe paid a deposit on it or something or other. And I remember my dad, maybe ages wasn't even that long at that time, but it was definitely weeks or maybe a couple of months or something or other. And it just never came. My dad was always like, he's like not getting the board and this and that. And it's, and so it was just funny because I wanted the Adam Luxford model. And I finally ended up getting it or whatever. And that was great, and had a big nose on it and stuff when that sort of stuff was happening. It wasn't quite popsicle shapes by then, but, kind of shapes, but noses had grown and all of that, a bit more facilitative towards modern skating. But then, so I met Luxford then, 89, 90, something like that. And then, we would have skated after that then Bondi vert ramp, for sure. He would have been skating the vert ramp with us. And then he took off to the States for however many years. He went over there for 5-6 years or something or other, whatever he was doing over there. And then eventually ended up coming back and starting Control.
And were you one of his first team riders? Because I always associate you with that brand.
I think so. Yeah, me and Mike D.
Yeah.
And
From Canberra.
Yeah. Mike D. And maybe Braddo
Best
was
commentator. Wasn't he a good commentator?
He was amazing at commentating, for sure.
Anyway, keep going.
Maybe Braddo was on. Someone else was on. Oh, man, Mulhall was on, actually, as well. So, yeah, it was pretty solid. There must have been someone else on there. But, yeah, it was cool. What can I say? I was like, oh, my goodness, Adam Luxford actually wants me to ride for him. I'm pretty sure he asked me, because I don't think I would ever have asked him, you know. And so he asked me to ride for him, and I was like, wow, you can't really get much better respect than that, having Luxford ask you to ride for him.
I mean, he really did do a lot for the Australian skate scene.
Amazing.
I mean,
for sure.
how many, he's kind of on the forefront of really getting skate parks, out of the ground and designed and things like that early on. He was really involved in that, wasn't he?
Sure. I mean, obviously Chad was too.
Yeah.
But Lux was definitely there. He was pushing all of that time and just wanting to be involved because he loves it.
Yeah.
He just straight up loves it. And yeah, I just remember, maybe the reason why I wanted his board was because of that Magnuson demo. I can't remember the timeline of that either, but at Fairfield. And I'm sure Luxford went higher than him. And T-Mag tries to, I think he's like, no. But I'm pretty sure Lux went higher. It was like, holy shit, an Australian can go higher than the big air American guy, one of the big air American guys.
American guy.
And it was amazing watching Lux skate. And I remember watching him at Curl Park and stuff. He was super technical for back in the time for what technical pre-flips and stuff were back then. He had lots of stuff going on.
Loved to fast plant.
He loved to do all things. I still reckon he's actually got probably one of the best eggplants that have ever been done.
Really?
For sure, he's definitely up there. He would just fully overturn them all the way around, to where his board was 90 degrees from all the way around, fully parallel with the coping, and then just drop back in. And I just remember going, my goodness, those eggplants are really good, for sure. And
is that how you met Mulhall? Or did you know Mulhall from way back before then?
I've known Mulhall for way longer than that. But I'll just say, with Lux, it was amazing watching him skate during the 90s and stuff, because he was often the guy with the ramp, and it was his ramp used for all sorts of comps, and so he'd be up the night before building the ramp. Sorry, Lux, but there'd be flaws in them sometimes and not perfect on comp day. But then he'd smash out building the ramp all night, probably not sleep at all, and then he'd probably win the comp the next day, most of the time, except for when Tuss was there or whatever, or Colin or something, because he was just a machine and he could just go and do his runs no problem, nobody's business, just out with it, all of it, no problem, and flying and just luxing hard, and it was amazing watching him do all of that stuff. He was so consistent and good at one, solid, just looked sick.
Yeah,
and
he's like a big man. He really sort of took control.
He did
the ramp,
but it didn't.
It really fitted that brand, that name for the company really fitted him.
For sure, I agree, definitely. No, it was an honour riding for him and just watching him do what he's done, and he's still heavily involved, and he loves it. It's sick seeing full lifers like that, So,
full lifer.
Yeah,
you're a lifer.
Guess so.
What's your involvement with the skate industry now? So, I know what you do, but just tell us again, what your job is effectively, who you're working for.
I currently am working with Globe and Hardcore, which is essentially the other side of Globe. It's one and the same, relatively speaking. I'm not sure which entity owns which.
Actually, so this is going to sound like a really rookie question. Do the Hill brothers still own Hardcore, or are they out now? Are they still?
Yeah.
How long have they had that now? It's 30 years.
Since the 80s, something or other.
Insane.
It's a public company, but they have majority shares in it still. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure of their overall involvement in day-to-day anything and everything.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're still there, and, they skated vert back in the day, and respect to that, they still love it, and they still employ skateboarders and play that side of things, and it's cool. Definitely.
Sales rep.
So, sales repping for New South Wales and ACT within that, and just go and visit all the surf and skate shops and have relationships with a lot of them. And help
them, get the products they need.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Advise them where necessary, and give a little ribbing here and there, and try and get things happening. But yeah, I just consider it all. I just consider it all about relationships, and I love the relationships I've formed with a lot of the people over time. Before I was with Hardcore, though, I was working for Blackbox, Jamie Thomas company, with
The Australian
the Australian side of it,
Yep.
Under Barnaby Lawrenson, who was running it here. And that was Zero, Fallen, and Mystery. And then we also distributed Destructo and LRG clothing for a little while. And that was really cool because I know that Jamie had a big hand in, who was getting employed there, and so yeah, it was
in
cool.
Australia.
In Australia, yeah.
So did he employ you, or he was aware? He was made
got
aware
to see.
of you.
He had oversight over everyone who was being employed here. It was a very small operation.
Did you feel honoured
realistically.
to get that job?
Definitely, of
Yeah.
course, And I mean, but funnily enough, there was a guy, Phil Jews, who was instrumental at the start of it because he knew a lot of the crew already. He asked me if I wanted to work for them, and basically I remember saying, "Hey, look, it's rad that Jamie owns it and stuff, but it's just I want to move on and have a more of a sort of career kind of thing. Might be the wrong word, career, but want to take it a bit more seriously and work." And apparently that was part of the reason that Jamie wanted to employ me, was like, not that I was a fanboy of Jamie, and that's the reason why I wanted to work for Blackbox, because I wanted to work and get involved. It wasn't just because I love Jamie and I want to work for Jamie.
Yeah.
And not that side of things. So that's kind of
because Jamie's a worker.
Jamie's a worker. He's very business, and respect to that. So I worked for them for a bunch of years as well, which was great. And
did it feel serious? Like, was it quite regimented under Jamie's regime?
No, because in all honesty, to my understanding, he basically washed his hands of it not long after it all got set up, and because I think it was much smaller here than what he had hoped for / anticipated it was sort of going to be.
Yeah.
And then I think things... Yeah, because that actually wasn't long before the GFC, realistically. This was all playing out, and then I think that all started happening, and then I think he had bigger fish to fry as that was all making itself manifest.
Yeah, he talks about it in his 9 Club episode.
He does, and that just reminded me of that timeline then, because it was like 2006, 2007 that this sort of started happening. So, I was there for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then that all started rolling out the GFC. And then it just became too hard basket for him trying to keep an eye on Australia, and he had to deal with what was going on in America. So yeah, he wasn't very hands-on involved in it. Realistically, he just let Barnaby do whatever he was doing.
So did they fold?
Yeah, it folded. Yeah,
in Australia as well.
Yeah, that was like 2013 though. It took a while. It was still like ticking over and doing what it was doing. The brands were pretty strong, realistically, until the big dogs came and started wiping the floor. But that's its whole own thing.
And then that kind of set you up for a position with Globe and Hardcore?
Yeah, because I was doing both at the same time. And then the previous rep, he left, and they were looking for someone, and I heard about it, and I was like, should I, shouldn't I? I mean, it's all right here at Blackbox, whatever, it's fine. And I was like, nah, it'd be good to work for Hardcore. So I applied for it, and then waited a while. They waited a while. They let Changa, who was the national sales manager at the time, Changa Cross, who lives up in Queensland now and is the Queensland rep for a bunch of the brands. He was down in Melbourne at the time, and they had him do a road trip or two up through New South Wales. I actually met him while I was in store one day, randomly. And I'd sort of, call him up once and, hey, what's going on with the job or whatever. And then finally it came through a few months later. They're like, yep, you got the job. And I was like, sweet. And then I was working for both of them at the same time because it's just an agent, like commission-based agent. And then, Blackbox a year or so later, maybe 2 years, folded after that. And I was like, wow, I'm glad I went for the Hardcore position to do that. So that's what I mean. I just fell into all these things. I mean, I put myself out there at the same time, but my first repping job, I was at STM, and
that's way back in the day, though.
Way back, yeah, early 2000s. And then they'd moved premises to a place in the Bondi Junction Mall instead, and combined the two shops, the St. Moritz ski shop and STM, and they just called it all STM. So it was ski and snowboards all in one place, plus some surfboards and a bunch of skate stuff. But, you know, like I say, Darren was very keen on having the skate vibe, you know, solidly represented. So I was working there for a while, and then I got hit up by the rep who was doing Circa footwear.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, but that company was also doing Forum snowboards, Special Blend outerwear, Foursquare outerwear, and Genius snowboards all at the same time. And she was leaving, Sarah. She was leaving doing that job, and so she hit me up. She's like, "Hey, I think, you know, you might be good at repping or something or other." And I was like, "Cool." And so I applied for that, and then ended up getting that role as New South Wales rep for those brands in New South Wales. So I had that for a few years. That ended up folding because Circa, a bunch of stuff happened at Circa, unfortunately, and then they had a whole bunch of money problems and bits and pieces, and a whole lot of things. Convict were actually distributing all that stuff, funnily enough. Convict skate parks.
Yeah, I was going to say the Concrete Skate Park crew.
Yeah. Well, the Convict skate park crew, because Concrete is another company. But, but the skate park builders and designers.
There
and
is
stuff.
too. Yeah.
So, I mean, funnily enough, there were skate park builders and distributors, like funny little juxtaposition there, but still involved. And
Makes sense.
So, yeah, but the stuff in the States, something fell apart there. I mean, that's probably a convoluted story, which I don't know the details of. But yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare trying to sell the snow stuff. It didn't really have samples and bits and pieces. I was stoked because I've snowboarded since forever as well.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to have those brands. They were real big brands at the time. Peter Line, JP Walker, and a bunch of the others, Devon Walsh and stuff. And that was sick representing
OG
that sort of
snowboard
things.
pros.
Proper, definitely.
Wow.
And then Circa, I was like, I wasn't sure about Circa, but I'm working for them and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah.
You know, Appleyard, Jamie.
Well, Musker had the best shoe ever on Circa. Remember
That was just before I was working for him. But yeah.
When he had the stash pocket in the tongue.
yeah.
I mean, just genius. How many pairs
Classic
of shoes
stuff.
did he sell because of that?
A lot, definitely. He was on point. Obviously,
Also, it was
with all
after
his
that.
stuff. Yeah, it was just not long
Okay.
after that, but a bit after that.
Interesting.
Adrian Lopez, the AL50, the little super mellow shoe, that was one of the best selling shoes in there for sure. But they were cool. They were cool to work for because they were good company. They did good stuff, I thought. It was a bummer that they folded because they had a good vibe. For sure.
Yeah. You know, there was a big boom in skateboarding during the lockdowns and the pandemic, yeah? Do you think, like, I guess you can only speak from the Australian side of things, but, like, is that boom still happening in skateboarding sales, or has it gone the other way? Don't want to talk about it?
In a few words, it's gone the other way.
Okay.
It was,
you don't have to go deep into it. But.
It was insanely massive during that, and that was global. It wasn't just Australia, because I was still doing the Dwindle brands, and so we'd have sales meetings about that stuff through Hardcore.
But do you think it was the lockdown stuff that made skate sales improve? Or because remember the Olympics happened during that time too. Was it the Olympics?
Who knows?
Onset?
I think it was a whole lot of things that just all happened at once. Probably.
Perfect storm.
Perfect storm. Apparently, it was the number 2 trending thing on TikTok at the time. Skateboarding, like skateboard clips and stuff.
Really?
Apparently.
Shit, how come no one looks at my skate clips? But anyway, that's another story.
Oh, man.
Because they suck.
I will not endeavour to answer that one.
Okay, good.
But perhaps that side of it came about, like on TikTok, because of social distancing and stuff, no team sports were happening, so the individual sports stuff took off, and skateboarding is obviously in there, push bikes, surfing, I think golfing to a lesser extent, personal gyms, all individualistic stuff took off, and maybe that's why it made it onto TikTok, because people could literally film a clip themselves, and do whatever they were going to do.
Well, they're getting their essential exercise.
Exactly, and so it just boomed. And the Olympics happened at that same time. So it was just a whole lot of things which combined. And, there was the government incentive money as well for people to basically spend money. And so because they weren't doing all those other things and they were locked up at home. I never got a
cent of that money.
Didn't you?
Nah. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it.
Fair enough. So there was money and people were spending it, and a lot on skateboards, push bikes, surfboards, all those things. And all of those industries have dropped off.
Yeah.
A lot since then. And I don't think it's necessarily because skateboarding or any of them are less popular, but I definitely think that a lot of people just got into them all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going, I'm just going to skateboard or surf. And then they actually discover that they're pretty hard things
It's
to
really
do.
fucking hard.
It's really
You have
hard
to
do.
commit.
You got to commit.
Surfing's the same. You can't just go and surf.
No,
You got to spend a
paddle
lot
out
of
and
time getting fucked around.
the whole thing, dealing with rips and, getting
Wipeouts.
swept along, wipeouts,
Surf aggression.
definitely that. Duck diving, like the whole
Fin
thing
chops.
is just insane, So they all take perseverance and dedication to push through as skateboarding does as well. And so people learnt that, and a lot of people, entry rate was massive, participation rate was, but then that dropped out real quick. But I still see skating, I still see heaps of kids skating. Skate parks are popping up everywhere. I still see the overall strength of skating is really good. And yeah, it's just the sales just will never, I don't think they'll ever, until population increases exponentially, potentially maybe going forwards, then that will be the only time that those sorts of sales can come like that again. It was a blip on the radar, but it was a massive blip.
Was that what inspired you to start a skate coaching business in that period of time? Or was it already inspired?
Partially that, but also I'd been a bit involved with Alex Danini. He's a good friend of mine for many years, who I met essentially through Michael Mulhall, and he's Keegan Palmer's coach. And so he was helping crew out down at Bondi for years before he was Keegan's coach, somewhat, and just always around and had an understanding. He skated a little bit himself and grew up skating, and he just was good at understanding it, good at articulating things, good at seeing things, and putting that out there and helping people along with it. And he worked his way into, just by being around and there and being friends with Chris, Keegan's dad, he basically became Keegan's coach because he's good at what he was doing, and helping him a lot, and just was in that position. And so coming up into the Olympics time, just Alex, we had a mutual respect of each other just as people and stuff, and he knew what I'd done with Bondi Skate Riders Club and our skate events down at Bondi for the 9 years leading up to that time. And so we'd just always talk skating and nerd out on it and stuff, and we'd talk about all sorts of things, and he would just ask me my opinion on this, that and the other, and we just got along like that. So I was, somewhat of a consultant towards the Keegan side of things, and then I was doing some work with the New South Wales Institute of Sport as well, which was through Alex.
Really?
Essentially, yeah. Creating just some admins, not admin, more than admin sort of stuff, but basically working on trick stuff for them to create an understanding of what judging was looking for and stuff, because I've been judging skate comps for a long time as well. And so just a consultant to the New South Wales Institute of Sport towards that. James Caragiorgio, really forward-thinking guy who was running that whole program at the time. And yeah, so I guess that had all happened. I mean, honestly, the reason I wasn't into coaching before that, even though I'd done some while I was managing Monster Skate Park for a year, in between repping for Circa and then getting into Blackbox and stuff, I was
You're busy.
sort of
Keep going.
only at times, as Shane Serena would attest to. And then I was managing Monster Skate Park, co-managing it with Corbin Harris as well. And I was doing some coaching there. But it was all beginners, and the kids just weren't into it. And because Olympic was essentially touted as a potential Olympic training facility before it was actually made a thing into the Olympics, but it was on the radar. It was definitely on the radar by this stage. This is like 2005. And it was on the radar at this stage. So, parents were starting to understand that, and, I guess skating was pretty popular. So, parents were like getting their kids to skate, and a lot of the kids weren't psyched. And so it was pretty uninspiring when you're working with kids who weren't actually that psyched to skate. They just wanted to run up the ramp and slide down on their bums and stuff. So it's kind of like, eh. But then working with New South Wales Institute of Sport and Alex and James and sort of Keegan, off to the side there. It just became apparent. I was like, I'm sort of interested in this, and I'm interested in the higher level sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And kids who are into skating. I believe that I can articulate myself and interpret things from my own experiences, and I've had my own, ups and downs in my time of skating as well. I hesitate to call it a career. But in my time within skating, I went through lots of different mental, psychological phases within that sponsorship side of things, and touching back on, comparing myself to others and all of that, and feeling that I had to do this and that in the whole sponsored realm, particularly during the 90s, because that was a lot of haters back then on, once a trick was done, you weren't allowed to do it and stuff. But, all of that sort of thing. So that all played out, and then I realised I could help people with their skating, and it's cool to do that. And
you bring so much experience, and you can bring the psychological aspect as well. That sports, I guess, for lack of a better term, like sports psychology to it as well.
For sure,
these up and coming. Because where I have a problem, I do have a bit of a problem with it when I see people who haven't been skating long but can skate. Trying to capitalise on it, because it seems like there is a real demand for skate coaches. I'm seeing it more and more. We all are.
Big time.
And I just personally, and I don't want to sound like a purist, and I really, encourage anyone to follow what their heart's telling them. But I don't know. I guess I feel like there's some people capitalising on it who don't have the credibility. And I'm not just talking about accreditations and things like that. I'm talking about, like what you were saying, that real long-term knowledge that you can't teach. You have to just acquire through years of
being in the trenches,
grinding it out, being in the trenches,
grinding it out. Huh.
No pun intended.
No,
do you agree or disagree?
I basically fully agree with that.
Okay.
I think there's different coaches for different things, you know what I mean? And when you're getting really down into the nitty-gritty, when you're a high-level athlete, which is realistically what they are. I mean,
yes.
Look, you can go back to the footy thing. Footy in the 80s, I mean, they're all just a bunch of blue-collar, barely even that workers, you know what I mean? And they played footy in what was the A-leagues back then.
Yeah.
And they were doing their day job or morning job, Garbo's council workers and stuff during the week. And then they'd play footy on the weekends and stuff. And then it turned into Super League and all of them getting paid properly, and that's all that they could do, you know what I mean? So to do that, if you're going to do that, you need to be looked after to do that. So you need to be strong, and so the strength and conditioning coaches, and so all of that comes into it. But then, to actually teach the skateboarding side on its own, I think there's definitely something to be said for having someone with actual skate experience who has
maybe industry experience.
And then that's a whole other thing. So you've got to be able to articulate, I think, how to do tricks and carry yourself skateboarding and an understanding of adaptability of different terrains and bits and pieces. But then, definitely the psychological side comes along with that, I think. So again, I think that's a majorly important part of it.
Yeah, so that's where probably your niche is, that more maybe top end. Because, I was just thinking, you could assist, say, a skater like Kieran Woolley with, improving his kickflip indie technique, but then you could also give him opinion and advice on negotiating a sponsorship deal with Monster. You know what I mean? Like, you could bring both of those aspects, really, couldn't you?
I think so, because I've had a lot of experience in the sponsorship side of things as well, and just understanding how the industry works. But as well, and on top of just a trick technique, I think also lines are really important too, like navigating a skate park and different things, because it's not a vert comp anymore. Vert comps are one thing. Lines still can be important in vert too, though, not doing too much of one thing, using the whole ramp, navigating the ramp. But when you're talking about an actual skate park, there's hips, extensions, corners, spines, transfers, different everything, different weird obstacles. It's about threading all of those things together in an optimum way. And I think some skaters are really good at tricks, and some, they don't know necessarily how to put them all together optimally.
No.
Because there's as far as the competition side goes, there's no perfect way to do any of skateboarding, let's face it. It's so subjective. But there are definitely better ways, which are, you're going in comps, right? That's ultimately what it's for. Let's face it, not beat around the bush there. That's what it's for. It's for competitions and doing better in competitions. And there are better ways to do things to get higher scores.
Yeah. That's
how to put it. You know, is it better skateboarding overall in someone's opinion? Well, that's debatable, you know. Again, subjective, but there are definitely things which are going to help you score better if you can put it together.
Subjective and divisive, like
very divisive.
It divides people, but that's the beauty of it too. It's good.
It's amazing, and that's what's fun, and that's I sort of touched on it earlier before we actually pushed record. It's like I have kind of mixed feelings about it because I came from, dare I say, a very pure side of it. You know, and so it's a funny thing seeing it being in the Olympics and such a mainstream thing. And I'm sitting on either side of the fence, and I love its purity, and I love the street side of things. I love all of that, but at the same time, I love working in the industry. I love having had the opportunity to work in the industry and the things that I do, and so I wouldn't. Coming back to, is it hard working in the industry or whatever? Sure, it can be, but if that is open to more people to be able to follow their passion, I'm very blessed to have been able to work in something I'm very passionate about. I love watching skating still. I love being involved. I love it. It's amazing watching it evolve and all of that. And so I think if, you know, you can whinge about and go, it shouldn't be this and it shouldn't be in the Olympics or whatever, but I maybe not hasten to say, but you're absolutely deluded and kidding yourself if you think that most all of these new skate parks and many amazing skate parks are being built. If you think that they're being built without the Olympics in the minds of some of those councillors, you are absolutely kidding yourself. Yeah. So we are blessed to have all of these facilities popping up. Sure. And, you know, essentially what you could call training facilities or whatever, you know, these perfect skate parks popping up. That is because of the Olympics, and you're kidding yourself otherwise.
Yeah, bro.
You know, and so that's amazing to have those opportunities. And, you know, as not being so engaged in wanting to go street skating these days, like it's hard, you know, a lot of the ground's rough. It's a whole other aspect, and that's why I have major respect for real pure street skaters out there, and you're like, my goodness, look at that ground, like all the Euro guys and stuff, Atlantic Drift and all of those guys, they just skate the most hectic spots, and it's insane. You know, so much of the California stuff, let's say, over the years has been kind of perfect, but obviously, as has been discussed many times before, all that stuff's played out, had to go into different
not in San Francisco,
different realms.
Like GX1000.
That's insane. That the whole GX1000, the whole San Fran thing, all that's very rough and all that, but that's all being pushed in more recent years, you know.
Yeah,
and
I know what you're saying.
That stuff is amazing to watch, and I love watching that evolution. It's like, no, let's do it on this stuff now, and watching all that's just, it's so cool to witness all that happening as well. But I'm not going to do that stuff, you know. I don't know, scared. Let's face it. And like, it's harder as you're getting older and trying to take care of your body. And so I love going to a nice, perfectly smooth skate park. If I fall over, I can slide along the ground, and it's much more gentle. When you
board out, you get like twice as long out of your board as well.
And all of that too. Like, it was a super fun session today at Glebe, you know, but it's not so intimidating. It's like all this perfect stuff that you can go and skate.
Yeah.
And it's great to have all these options of all of these parks. I was out at Oran Park yesterday, judging a comp for the Rumble.
So sick.
Yeah, it's so different. And I had trouble skating it. It's a little odd in design, like overall, the whole thing put together, but there's so many different things and cool obstacles out there to skate. There's so much. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. People could really do so much different stuff here. So we're very lucky to have all of these facilities coming up everywhere.
Oh, man, it's a dream. Like, what did we really grow up with? You know, dying for stuff to skate like that. So
Nothing.
There
was very little.
I know.
It was very little.
But, you know, your passion is so deep. Like, I mean, we skated for like 4 hours today. You know, and then when we 3 hours? Oh, yeah, what time we got there? 10 to about 1?
10 to 1.
Sorry. but it was after 3. But even towards the end, like it's like you still, like you skated non-stop, and then even right at the very end, you were still like, I'm just going to muck around with a few frontside slappies, and like I kind of still got the vibe like you didn't really want to leave, but you know we sort of had to go. But I was like, yeah, Ty, doing it at your age. How old are you? You don't have to say. It's a bit of a bad question. Don't answer it. Still young at heart.
You can all work it out.
Yeah, so let's look quick. I want to plug your skate coaching stuff. What's it called? Let's go.
Flow Skate.
Yes, brother.
Flowskate.com.au. Okay. And my aim is towards more intermediate to advanced skateboarders, probably more particularly in the park realm, as such, or vert side of things. But you know, I'll also be down to do street stuff because I've got a lot of street background, and I'm going to put more videos up of that stuff on my site at some stage going forward, so you can see.
Yeah.
I mean, I was certainly never the most stylishly technical guy. Like I've always had a mob flip. It's never been nice and out the front.
Takes a big man to admit that, Ty.
It's just a fact. Let's face it. But I've always had fun doing it, and I love street skating. It's so fun, and it's what I do more.
Street Tie.
It's what I do more of these days. I love glebe. It's so fun. Warm up on the mini, go chomp around on the other bit, you know. But if there was a really good vert ramp, I'd probably go skate that too. I'm pretty keen to do a good backside air again at some stage too.
Dude.
Definitely
you got to touch that tail though. You got to ollie into them. Don't like none of this popping off the coping stuff.
Well, since I've done that, I can't. Yeah, it's hard to go back.
Can't go back.
Yeah, it's already there. So yeah, some things it's a bit random actually. Skate things. It can be one of either one happens.
Yeah.
So I'm not skating, you know, that stuff that much these days. But yeah, I'll do it all. But yeah, so I'm definitely keen on, you know, being able to talk to people and go through stuff that they're going through, help them through the industry.
Yeah.
I believe I've got the understanding to be able to do that stuff, and some validity out there to assist in whatever ways.
Mate, you've got more than some things to offer. You've got so much to offer. Like, I'm not just saying that. I know it sounds like I'm like fully trying to plug you, but I mean, it's just like you're one of the few people that can, I think, can legitimately do that aspect, like all aspects, like not, I think, yeah, like if there's complete beginners and people, you know, want to teach a complete beginner how to push on a skateboard or do an ollie, I get that, but I think you're well beyond that aspect. Although, would you do that though?
I should have added that there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely do that, like in the right circumstances, for sure. I'm up to do that because it's rad seeing kids get into it. As long as they're keen, if they look keen and they're actually like psyched on the vibe, then I'll work with them. You know,
Yeah, okay.
I'm down for that. So because we all started somewhere, and I don't want to exclude that.
Yeah.
It's been part of my life. I mean, basically had to do it myself.
Yeah.
You know, because that's just how it was back then. You know, but that was all part of the journey. But I think that's also something if you are that keen as a kid or whatever, but. Granted, they're generally starting a lot younger these days, just because it's around and accessible and known and all of that. But it's I think it's a nice journey to be able to discover a lot of the things yourself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And get there and not just be coddled the whole way. And this is how you do it and that's how you do it. Like, discover it yourself. Feel it. And that's the beauty of skating, feeling all these different things.
Feeling it, and then, but this is when it starts to develop those other higher order values like commitment and hard work and dedication and resilience, falling over and getting back up again, translates into all aspects of your life.
Big time.
You know, and I think that's where the deeper aspect of it comes. But funnily enough, I've had a few requests for skate lessons of people, and I'm like, you know, like, friends or colleagues like, oh, can you teach my kids how to skate? And I'm like, sure. And then like they've offered me money. I'm like, I'm not taking your money, no way. You know, the first thing I do every time I've done it, I always straight away I teach them to push with their back foot. That's it. That's the very first thing before anything.
Well, it's a fundamental. It's such a balance related thing, and balance is the key to all of it, basically.
But what spins me out is how much people automatically go to front foot pushing. Like, and when they're first starting out, they just think, like, it's always like their default, like, oh, you got to push like Mongo. I'm like, no.
Well, I think...
Dude, it's back foot.
But if you sort of think about it, and I'm not sure about this, but if you sort of look at it, what happened with skiing? You're on the two things and you're facing forwards, right? And you walk forwards. And so let's say the Mongo foot thing.
Yeah.
You're literally facing forwards like the whole time.
Yes.
And that's, I think, probably where it comes from, because that's what we do. We walk forwards. That's
Yeah.
being human, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But as soon as you pushing, quote unquote, properly, not Mongo, you're standing sideways. And so it's a bit of an abstracted thing from our usual modus operandi of getting around, you know what I mean?
I think kids that have started on a scooter first and then go to a skateboard, that they'll go for Mongo pushing.
I think it's a bit of both there, because I see
They're
like
facing
both.
forward. and
They're
they-
kind of facing forward, but you see their feet are, I mean, not to defend them, but the feet are, they're slightly a bit sideways, because you kind of can't stand literally parallel forwards on those
But
things. They're too skinny.
Shoulders, though, like forget feet, shoulders are forward.
True.
You know, and that's what when I've given these little lessons to friends for no cost. I show them the biomechanics of when you push with your front foot, how off balance you are when you have to try and get back into the sideways position, and then when I demonstrate that, and then I say you take your back foot off, and then when you bring it back on, there's no upper body change really.
True.
You're automatically in the balance position you need to be. But I've got this other weird theory. I feel like with good skaters, you know how switch Mongo's cool,
Yeah.
right? I feel like Mongo is going to make a comeback in this anti-establishment cool, I'm pushing Mongo just to be cool. Yeah, mark my
Big
words.
call.
You know, some of the
I've
next
never
gen,
considered that.
some of those really sick skaters we've seen today at Glebe, those guys could pull it off. Go, yeah, I just push Mongo because I feel like it, and then they rip. Then they do a tail slider, that whole ledge kickflip out. You know. Anyway.
Haven't foreseen that one,
Just
I must
brainstorming. Yeah, if it happens, you heard it here first, everyone.
say. Definitely.
Listen, man, it's been epic. So epic. What a day. It's been a great day with you. And I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause that they want to support or advocate for. So what do you got for us?
I've thought about this after listening to a few different episodes of the podcast.
Yep.
And a lot of people come in with humanitarian things, which I totally find is valid. And I was like, which one of those am I into? But one that I've supported for a long time is Sea Shepherd.
Yes.
Basically, because I think one thing which we have very little knowledge of is the oceans overall. And it's obviously, I've followed the Sea Shepherd thing for a while through my family and assorted people. And the oceans just seem they're so vast and so hard to basically have control of. I mean, the super trawler stuff is just outrageously out of control. You know, whaling, all sorts of things, and that stuff's just really hard to police because the ocean's so big and you can't see things even not that far from you, you know what I mean? So there's uber policing on land that we have, but out in the oceans there's not, and I think it seems to have been, shown that we're basically pillaging the oceans, and the longer that goes on for, well, that's going to be, it's been shown to be unhealthy for the oceans when the ecosystem's out of balance out there. And Sea Shepherd, they're not asking for permission. They're just out there doing it, and I respect them. They're kind of the rebels in that sort of thing. They're just direct action, taking it into their own hands and stopping that stuff happening, and I respect that.
I think militant action is needed.
Yep.
Especially, like you said, in those circumstances where it's kind of, for lack of a better term, like Wild West rules. So they need that. They do need it. And I also think these corporate companies, they're being radical, but they're doing it kind of within the rules, but they're using money to get their own way. And I think they're aggressive and they're militant. So
Big time.
So, yeah, that's what's so cool about Sea Shepherd. They're just giving it back to them.
Big time.
But and I like the ethos of them. I don't know the technical side of actually what they're doing. I know that what they're doing, but the ins and outs of the environmentalist debate with that. But I like their ethos.
Big time.
Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right?
Yeah, and that's how a lot of things have happened over time with humans as well. You know what I mean? Big business comes in and tries to implement this rule, that rule, and it's by people sticking up for their own rights, by making social and industrial change happen, basically. And that's what, but these guys are advocating for people who can't fight for themselves, like the whales and stuff, and that's what it comes down to. And as basically we are somewhat custodians over the earth, we have the power to change things ultimately, and so there needs to be people taking that into their own hands, because there's some powers who don't care as much as other people.
Yeah. You just got me thinking, and this has come up on the podcast a lot in the past, especially when I have had environmentalists on here, especially in my early days of the podcast when I was working at the Green School. I was around a lot of environmentalists, and I think what seems like humans forget that we are part of nature.
Oh, man. Well, we
are part of nature. We're not separate to it, but we act like we're not, and we keep fucking it over.
Big time, and that's a part of the thing. It's like there's a whole...
It's a big debate.
There's a big debate, and just to be brief about it, I mean, there's sort of like left and right in politics these days and whatever, and I generally, have considered myself a lefty from my family, artists, environmentalists, and bits and pieces, human rights. My dad's worked with Indigenous people with his artwork and stuff. There's been a lot of that whole side of things. But so that would be modernly, classically left, basically. Yeah. And then the right side of things is capitalist, industrialist kind of thing, entrepreneurialism. All of that is classically right, yes. Relatively speaking. You know what I mean? So relatively speaking, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Because left is more socialist, which I'm down for social causes, public holidays, public schooling, public medical, public hospitals and stuff, all of that. So I'm down for that. But at the same time, I also can appreciate, not extreme capitalism, but like you say, I'm somewhat of an entrepreneur, and there are many entrepreneurs in skateboarding, and entrepreneurs have done great things for the world. So I would say, relatively speaking, I prefer to hug a tree than to have money as such, because without the tree, you're not having that money. If there are no trees, it's over.
There you go. It's true.
It's true. We need nature. Nature has given us literally everything. What is in your phone and this equipment right now? Precious metals, which come from nature. There's no nature.
It kills me.
There's no nothing with no nature. So it's nature first, then business second. But business is important because we all need to trade and barter.
Yeah.
Money is just the bartering system that we have become accustomed to and agreed to.
Yes.
And it would be pretty damn complex to trade in all the goods that we like to have these days without a universal trading system. If it was just barter, it would be very difficult.
I was wondering where you're going with this. I'm like, you're talking decentralized currency.
No, not at all. I just think. I mean, that's its whole own thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert on all that stuff, but money is a very facilitative tool to achieve the things and somewhat the lifestyles to which we have become accustomed.
Yeah.
So it's a necessary evil, as some might say, but it is necessary. I do believe it's necessary in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, look, I agree. But I do want to go back to the entrepreneur thing. I think there's a difference between entrepreneurism and capitalism.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think an entrepreneur can create things and develop things that aren't necessarily driven by money or wealth. It can be driven by community and just a straight creation and support. I still see entrepreneurism as, conceiving ideas and putting them into action and creating, systems and communities and structures, things like that are your own. So
no, super valid point.
Whereas like capitalism is, I feel like, more based in, wealth and greed.
Sure. I totally agree with your entrepreneurism statement for sure. And I think you can be community-minded, entrepreneurially for sure. But I think the main problem is, I don't think there's a problem with capitalism per se, but unfettered and unchecked capitalism.
There you go.
That's the problem. And basically corrupted systems.
There you go.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But capitalism, why not wanting to make some money. I think that provides some incentives, and people do a lot of great things with money. They help causes. Sea Shepherd is getting supported by money, by people with a lot of money donating to them, as are many great causes. So, and that is effectively only achieved by excess money in people's bank accounts that they can give away towards these causes, and that is based on capitalism.
Yeah, true. And I think the issue I have is when people have to, whose toes do they have to tread on to get that extra money? I think if you're doing it, and that's when the ethics debate comes in, and I think an even distribution of wealth is also very important. So, distributing the wealth evenly.
I'm not so sure about that, strictly speaking, like totally evenly. It depends how far you're taking that statement. More fairly, sure. I think the taxation system could be heavily overhauled for sure, and actually adhered to as it's meant to be. It doesn't seem like it's done that well. Not that I'm an expert on that sort of stuff, but if everyone had the same amount of money, literally, that would just... There's something to be said for... don't hasten to say this, but inequalities of sorts, because that makes us strive for things. And some people want to do them just because they're just naturally driven, but as well, other people are motivated in different ways, and it's helpful to have something to strive for.
Gotcha.
That can motivate people. And it's not necessarily the money in itself as such, but you got to have something to work for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If everything came easy, if you just got all the money, then a lot of people might... I certainly don't think everyone, by any means. A lot of people want to do things because they're interested and intrigued and want to be involved in things, for sure. But if money was literally evenly distributed, it would provide a whole lot less motivation to go and do this, that and the other. Yeah,
you're talking about the reward aspect of it. It's like the reward for your hard work.
Yeah, exactly. Like learning a trick that takes years to learn. You know what I mean? You know how hard you've worked for that. If you could do a trick first shot, how interesting would skateboarding really be if you could do everything first go?
True.
It would be pretty dull.
Yeah, well, ask those Street League guys. Maybe that's why I get bored watching Street League. Don't get me wrong, Street League's amazing, but they're just so fucking good. They're so good, like too good. Someone does a backside nose blunt slide down a 15-stair hubber that they set up, right? And it's like the first trick in their run to start their run off. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, that's an ender for, like, you know what I mean?
Oh, it's insane.
And it's like, and you get like desensitized to it. It's like, and even for the skaters, they're like, oh yeah, like it's pretty good,
No, there's definitely that side of it. But at the same time, old mate had to work to get to that 15-stair backside nose blunt.
That's an example.
And the reason he's doing that is because he knows it's hard and it's going to get him a good score. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but he's put in the work to get to that stage, you know. But that's what I mean. If you could do a McTwist or a 15-stair backside nose blunt first go every time, and you could do a tray flip, crooks or whatever, if you could do all that first go and everyone could do it first go, where would be the intrigue in that?
Exactly.
It'd be passé. You wouldn't care.
But I also think that's what's harmed Niger. Like just being too good and making things look too easy and being too consistent. And he puts out one of the best video parts ever made and then doesn't win Skater of the Year.
Well, that wasn't even just that video part. Don't even get me started on the Niger thing.
But that's what I mean. Like, is that why, like... he gets the credit that he deserves, but I think he still gets like a lot of shit.
He gets a lot of hate, and man, I think Niger is exceptional, and anyone who actually pays attention sees the work that he puts in. He puts in a lot of work, for sure. He gets beat down.
Oh my
properly.
God!
He takes the beatings. It's not like that stuff comes easy. Some of those clips from last year were just insane. That switch front blunt down that rail with that concrete wall ledge after it and stuff. There was so many life-threatening circumstances in so many of those.
My friend Jeremy calls it death risk. His whole part was full of death risks, and there was some legit death risk in that part.
Like legit, I talk about this with guys sometimes. Guys is like, mate, Nigel could have just kept all of those like sections of all of those videos and basically just kept them on ice for the next 10 years if he'd worn some really nondescript clothes for that whole time and shoes that you couldn't identify the borders to an era or a timeline.
Yeah.
Just keep all of that stuff. Then for the next 10 years, just film some lines in between.
Yeah.
And then he's got all the enders.
Yeah.
And he's got a multitude of enders for multiple parts. Just film some easy lines and some manual stuff and go and do some different things. Maybe, hell, just go and do some transition stuff for giggles.
For giggles.
You know what I mean? And then he could have parts for the next 10 years and not even care.
Yeah, keep Nike happy. Keep renewing his contracts.
Happy. But he puts it all out and you're like, dude, any one of those things could be the end.
Where do you go from there? That's the thing. But here's the thing, like, what if Nigel was wearing a pair of Dickies and an oversized T-shirt? Do you think he'd get more love
from select bits of the populace?
I know you are the man that devised the mesh, skate shorts. So does his style speak to you?
Hey, that's when that stuff was happening. They were below the knee.
By the way, your Guy Miller impersonation was bang on. Keep going.
No, I don't know. I just think hate is so easy to have, in a sense. You can be so picky and subjective and whatever. And I think definitely the image that Nigel puts out there is a lot of people's, they have issues with that. But when you break it down, I mean, I've watched a lot of his stuff. And he's a skate rat. I honestly believe that he is a skate rat through and through. And I think
100%.
that's what matters. He's like smiling when he's coming out of lots of stuff in lots of different clips. There's a series of videos called the Strong Arm Sessions on YouTube, which are just all random iPhone clips and stuff that people have had. And I've seen one or two of those of his, and he's just like, doo-doo-doo. And they're just any other day's clips. And you're like, man, you just, anywhere and everywhere, you just love it, and you're just smashing stuff.
And maybe smart, like business-wise. I mean, he designed a skate shoe that looks like a sports shoe that non-skaters who like to do their CrossFit and shit look at and go, I wouldn't mind getting a pair of them to do my gym workouts in. And then skaters looking, you're skating them. They're really well designed for skating. Like,
Good on
he's
him.
just got the market covered there.
Like, it's great. And he deserves any money that he gets because he's gnarly and he's putting his life on the line.
He's gnarly. Like, aside from Nigel, who are some modern-day skaters that you really like?
Who's modern? Well, Jimmy Wilkins, as far as vert side of
I knew you were
things.
going to say that. Like, such a vert dog at the end of the day.
Insane. I love Keegan skating. I think Keegan Palmer, he skates amazingly. He's definitely one of the best transition dudes but he just keeps a lot of stuff under wraps. Really love watching Kieran Woolley as well. He's super diverse and can chomp around on so many things, got some good street stuff, and he just seems to be really ad hoc and just throw stuff out. Really love that side of things. Then who else? Like street skaters.
Come on, give me someone. Aside from Nigel.
Far out.
Put him on the spot.
I know that really is. I'm having a full mental blank.
It's all right. You're old, but you won't tell us your age. But that's cool. I'm comfortable with it.
The Euros, lots of the Euros, like
They're ripping.
all the Yarko and or heaps of those dudes. They're so amazing.
Carlos Ribeiro.
Hey, yeah, like all those guys, a bunch of the Brazilians and stuff. The GX guys are obviously just incredible. GX 1000. Like, there's so much good skating.
There's death risk in all their video parts.
Totally. Like Tom Knox, the new Tom Knox.
Right.
He's really amazing. The Atlantic Drift guys, all of them.
Feeling
Yeah, there's just so many amazing skateboarders these days.
Yeah,
I love it. I wish I could think of people by name. Sorry, everyone, but
No.
there's so many good skaters. Like, that's what I love it. There's so much out there to watch. There's so much content.
Don't get sick of it?
No,
You don't get sick of skateboarding?
Hey?
You don't get sick of skateboarding?
Really? No. I mean, there's definitely clips that are better than others, like for sure, and some aren't as inspiring or whatever, but there's so much good content now. John Worthington, the pool dude, the new pool guy.
Pool
goodness.
room? The pool rooms? No, is it pool room skateboards?
No. That's Sammy Winter's brand. But no, John Worthington's just a pool skater.
Oh,
and he's
sorry,
like,
pool skater.
He's probably the best pool skater ever. Like that
Right, I'm
pool
a bit
guy.
out of touch.
Yeah, he's insane.
I'm having trouble keeping up, and that's all I watch is like YouTube skate clips.
Same.
And Yeah, there's just so much content nowadays, and everyone is ripping, and so they should be, given the
for sure.
facilities and what's been done, and the access to looking at tricks so you can improve, and building upon what's already been done and stuff like that. But what really inspired me the other night, I watched a clip. Tony Hawk has the thing called the Vert Alert, and he did a Legends.
Yeah.
They had a Legends session just the other day, and he got his vert ramp, the Tony Hawk ramp, and they moved it to some venue. They might have been in Vancouver, Colorado. Oh, not Vancouver,
No, it was
Canada.
It was Utah.
Utah. I knew it was a snow area or whatever.
Yeah.
And Sandro Diaz, remember him? The old vert dog?
Of course I remember
Sorry,
Sandro. I love Sandro.
But you had everyone there, like Mike McGill, Mike Crum.
Yeah. I saw Crum. That was
Mike
sick.
Fraser.
Yeah.
And they're all ripping, don't get me wrong. But then Sandro Diaz was just on a whole another level.
Yeah, I haven't watched the Legends.
Him and
part of
Bucky,
that,
obviously.
And Bucky's
were just still relevant,
my
like
goodness.
more as relevant as they've ever been.
Bucky's incredible. I just can't even believe what he's
Do you know
still
Bucky?
doing.
Have you ever got friendly with him?
I've skated with him and stuff. I wouldn't say I know
Comes to
him, but
Bolorama.
yeah, exactly. So, he skated under Bart at Billabong and stuff or whatever, for Billabong, so knew Bart. So, I hung with Bucky bits and pieces for sure. But what he keeps doing is amazing. For sure, all those guys. That whole Vert Alert comp was insane. The girls are all coming up ripping as well. Arissa True, Ruby True. Like the girls are incredible. Sky is insane.
Sky Brown,
yeah. Like they're all ripping. The Japanese girls are all totally killing it. Yuto's insane for sure. And I'll just say that Vert Alert stuff. There was some insane stuff. I love Tom Shah is absolutely incredible. But even, Reese Nelson, the young girl Reese Nelson who was in there, my goodness, like, wow. Totally, incredible stuff that's going on these days. The progression is just
Japanese girl
incredible.
skaters. What's going on there with those Japanese girls?
I just can't even. I mean,
Skate coaches. They've got skate coaches early.
for sure.
You need to maybe move to Japan, I think.
Yeah, that could be an interesting one for sure.
I think you'd kill it over there with that.
No, they're ripping. They came out swinging at the Olympics. That was because they haven't really been strong on the competitive scene openly, and Olympics and since they've just been absolutely dominating. Sora Shirai is incredible.
yeah.
My goodness, several of those dudes are just like wow, so tech and
It's crazy.
I love it all. It's so good watching where it's come from and where it's going.
It is.
Still going, which fascinates me. Literally, this is a story I tell like Sammy often. 20 years ago, more, I was like, pretty much every base trick has been done. Nollie kickflip, nollie heel flip, 360 flip. You don't want to do a quadruple 900-degree kickflip. It's going to look horrendous, right?
Yeah.
So all the base tricks have been done, and I thought, am I even still going to be interested in this in X amount of years? Like, how long can I be interested in this? Because all the tricks have been done, basically. And then I'm still fascinated by it, and I look back at that memory and think, I'm still fascinated by it, and I still love watching it. I still nerd out on it and get blown away by what people are doing. It's just the terrain, the adaptations to different terrains, and that's what I love about the European stuff, because there's all these wild bits of architecture that they're just doing all these wild combos and moves on, and just winging it and just doing whatever. Before it was super regimented, you had to do this trick at these spots and sort of thing, and now it's so open and diverse, and there's so much different things going on, and it might just be that trick, but it's off of this and into that or over that. And the hippie jump video that the Atlantic Drift dudes did was just gold, man. Through that phone box, 180, it was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That stuff is just amazing.
Well, the creativity is endless. Like, even you just got me thinking about remember the man ramp clips that were coming out, only skaters think of shit like that. It's so creative.
It has such the ability to do that, because the skateboarding isn't attached. It's nothing. You don't, it's just out there, and you can do so many things with it.
So true.
And that just keeps it fascinating, and it's still going. I'm still like, wow, there's something still is blowing me away.
It's funny, in my 20s, I asked myself that, I wonder if I'll still be interested in what's going on in skating in my 40s, and well, I guess the answer is yes. Yeah. Turns out I'm still interested.
Big time, right? It's still...
Yeah. But maybe more so. I'm going through this new era of it where it's now I'm just I feel like I'm a guy that, I want to be the guy that's, you skate all right for someone in their late 40s. Like, I like that. It's like this new thing. It's like, oh, wow, like you're in your late 40s. Oh, wow, and you can still flip your board? Yeah. Like, oh, cool. Like, it's like this new buzz. Do you feel that?
For sure. It's super, it's funny because I never thought it, because old guys, when I was young, like Tony Hawk was old.
29.
And he's 5 years older than me. You know what I mean, or whatever. And the old guys were only 5 years older than us back in the day. It was like, oh my goodness, you're old. And now they're just so not. Now it's grown so much through that time. People keep skating, and it is pretty amazing. And crew are just still loving it and still doing it. And to, lesser technical extent, except for some people, Tony, Jamie, Reynolds, like all those dudes still like kind of holding it up. Yeah. It's really cool to see. But the generations, there's so many different generations of it all that it's gold.
So, man, what a gift, hey, to have a passion like this.
Yeah, definitely. I was just, you saying flipping your board, I was bummed I didn't do a flip today.
I didn't want to say anything. Just kidding. Took me about how many tries did it take me to do that heel flip up that gap?
Not that many. It was just, you just really 10? Wanted it. I think it was less than 10.
Okay, but still, look, again, this is where I'm much nicer to myself. I'm like, I should have made that first or second shot, but it's like, and then Darren does stuff first or second shot. But then I'm like, no, like I persevered and I did it. I'm happy with that. Like, it's like you count your victories differently, I think.
Definitely. And it's taken me a long time to get used to that.
But you know what tripped me out about you today? When you did a frontside grind on it was like a wall ride, that little wall ride that's so steep.
It's just a bang.
Well, it's not. It's more than a bank. It's like a wall that's on an angle, a slight angle.
Sure.
It's steep as hell. But to hit it frontside, like I went up it backside and I could barely get up it. Like I felt like I was doing a wall ride. But you got up it so easy and then you 5-0 grind on it and then into a frontside nose slide. I was like, Ty's doing it, man.
Well, that's funny you should say that. And that's what Guy said to me years ago about me and Skunk being on Juice. He's like, you can skate a pool and weird stuff like Skunk skates other things, and Skunk can't do those things as much, and that's what I like, skating weird stuff. In fairness, backside on that bank thing today is hard for me. I've tried to go backside, but the frontside grind is just easy for me to do on that. I really wanted to do it on the steep, the wall jam thing, but I didn't get
Which
high enough
one?
on
That thing.
The barrier thing.
That's hard to skate too.
That's hard.
Did you get a backside scratch on that?
I don't think so. It was close, but it wasn't there.
Yeah, Skunk, man. There wasn't much he couldn't do, really.
I'll do it.
Yeah. I know he lives up in North Queensland, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Skating? Did you ever talk to him?
Not much. No.
Yeah.
I think he does here and there.
Just doing his thing up there.
Yeah. He's just working, family man, doing that stuff, loving nature.
Yeah,
loving life.
He's a conservationist.
Sure.
He's got that conservationist vibe.
He certainly does. He's aware. He knows what's going on with all that stuff. Yeah.
Living consciously.
Definitely. Love Skunk.
Yeah, man.
Love all those guys. Throwback to the old Juice days. It was super good. Rad hanging out with all those guys and getting to know everyone through that whole time. It's great.
Yeah, dude. You guys were killing it. I loved it. And I really do. I really do remember and love how the Juice videos that you did, there was like everyone had a cameo. Anyone that had the time to film with you, you'd give them a cameo in that. You had your core writers, but there was. You look at the list on the back of those videos. There's like 30 skaters in those things. It's so sick. And I remember you worked really hard to get everyone a little piece of that, didn't you?
Well, I mean, sure, me, but it was me. It was me and Guy. It was both. We were just out filming crew. It wasn't like
you didn't care. They didn't have to ride for Juice.
No, but that's not. More so, my point is, it wasn't like you'd tee up with Davo to go and film his part. I mean, there was bits of that happening. Or Guy definitely went out with Jeff to film stuff specifically, but it was like you would just sort of go into the city and film, and just people would be around. The crew would be around. So it was just sessions, and so you're filming it. They put it in the video.
Yeah.
Like, just encourage everyone. It was just part of community. It wasn't super elitist,
That's what I loved about it. You were trying to create community back before that was even a term. But there was just always a distinct lack of ego with you and Guy. And I always used to really admire that, man. And I think a lot of people feel it.
Well, that's awesome. And you were saying you, but it's definitely... Guy was a big part of that too, but it was also me. Like when I first shot the first Juice video, I just didn't work for months. I'd saved up a whole bunch of money And then I just lived off that money, and I just went around and filmed people skating for months to make the first Juice video.
I remember.
You know?
I remember seeing you were always around with a video camera.
Yeah.
Working
Well, sometimes I was
your ass
multitasking. I remember at the X Games, I was skating the vert and quote-unquote street comps. I don't know if you could really call them street courses at that
It's all quarter
stage.
pipe.
Yeah, it was hectic. Big ones too, right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, skating the vert comp, skating the street comp, and then videoing everything that I wasn't when I wasn't skating. And I was like, I had my pad bag on and the video bag on the front, and just like, it was hectic. I had a street board and a vert board. I was just like this guy overladen with stuff. It was just trying to fit it all in and be involved.
You know that surf term that surfers use, like someone's a frother? Like,
Yeah.
Like that's what you're like. You're a full skate frother. Just frothing to everything skate.
Well, skate rap. That's the skate
That's what we
term,
use.
skate
Yeah,
rap.
surfers call them frothers.
Frothers, yeah, for sure.
it's the
I love
best.
surfing too.
You still surf?
Yeah, for sure.
Get in the water?
Love it. Yeah.
What do you like about
Surf
it? What
more
is
than
it?
skating?
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Guy does, and I
100%.
surf too, and I've done a lot of surfing over the last 20 years, but I've actually pulled back from it a little bit. Just need to change from it, need to break from it. I still love it, but what does surfing do for you that skating doesn't?
I feel better after surfing when I get out of the water as opposed to skating when I feel worse
Are
after.
you gonna feel sore tomorrow?
Yes. But it's such a different thing, just feeling the push of a wave behind you. There's just no other feeling like that. And then to actually then do something on that wave is really cool. And they're so fickle and they're always changing. And it's, the crowd is definitely an off-putting factor. But when you do get either an uncrowded session or you manage to blag a lot of waves, if it is a crowded sort of session or whatever, but you actually get decent waves to ride, and then you can actually put some moves together. Because I love to try and do stuff on a wave. Like, I'm not the air guy or anything, but cutties and hooks and snaps and rios or whatever, like just feeling all those things. And they're always kind of different. I've done a few laybacks here and there and stuff, and it's just fun. It's just super fun because you never know if you're going to get that section or that wave is going to produce a section or whatever. So when you get it and then you get like multiple turns into the beach, it's like you've won.
Yeah.
You only need 3. Sometimes you only need 1 wave in an hour's session, whereas skating, you want to do so much in a session, but you can be happy, you can be legitimately happy with 1 good wave in an hour or 2, even 2 hours session. If you get a really good wave, you remember that for ages, you know what I mean? And if you get heaps of waves, it's just like, woo!
Yeah,
It's
it
amazing.
teaches you not to be greedy, but also, it's so healthy. Like, you're immersing yourself in nature. You don't have access to a phone or a computer.
Yeah.
And you have to switch off from those things, and then you're paddling and you're breathing heavily, and so it's like really helping you, like your breathing. So it's like a form of like breath work, paddling, duck diving, and then obviously physically it's quite demanding on you, especially your arms, your paddling and your shoulders and stuff like that.
Sure, surf fitness is something else.
It's different, but also you got your core switched on the whole time you're laying on your board, and there's so many benefits to it.
Antioxidants from the whitewash.
I've heard that, yeah. Like
Apparently.
those good ions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then here's the other thing, like if you're surfing at sunset or dusk, you're getting the sunrise and the sunset, that light in the morning is meant to be really good for hormonal regulation.
Yeah, for sure.
So like seeing that light, seeing those colours in the morning and those colours in the evening apparently triggers the appropriate hormones for waking up and then going to sleep.
Sleep regulation for sure.
Yeah,
All of that.
Magnesium in the water.
Yeah, right.
Could go
Didn't know
on.
that one.
Could go on.
I will add to surfing too, like it's, unless you get completely punished, it's fun getting rinsed in a wave and being completely out of control in the whitewash underwater,
Yeah.
just like rolling with it.
How much
That's kind of
easier is
fun
it
in
than
itself.
slamming on a
Well,
skateboard?
exactly that, like definitely. But it's fun. You're like out of control, just getting washed around. It's like cool if you kind of know that you're not getting completely punished and you'll be able to pop up in a second and get your breath. I enjoy that side of it too. Like
About surf culture though, dude. Fuck.
it's interesting.
It's different to skating, eh?
It's so different. It's so different because it's not, but it's a more finite resource as such. You know what I mean? You've been out there and it just goes flat, and that's it.
Yeah.
Or it just goes terrible or whatever. You know what I mean? It's so that whole side of things is so different. You know,
It's supply and demand too. you know,
Yeah.
like, and there's that many surfers, there's not enough supply of waves to keep everyone happy. So then the better surfers have to push the less good surfers down to get on top to get more waves. And my friend who's a journalist for Stab magazine reckons that it's a metaphor for capitalism surfing. That's what he calls it.
That's a valid point. Sure.
It's pretty funny, actually.
Definitely. It's pretty brutal.
It's
pretty
funny.
dog eat dog.
Anyway, man, it's been epic, and I think it's time to wrap it up, man.
Yeah, fair call. You had a big day.
Yeah, so have you.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, man. I feel like I could
Likewise.
keep talking, but...
No, same, but I can see the time there too.
Is there anything else you want to end on? Like, or do you want to just do the full Mike Valley episode? Mike V, five hour episode.
Man, I've definitely got more stories.
Yeah, I know. It's been around for a while, man.
You know what actually is one story which I got just yesterday? It can be a quick one, but you'll be stoked on it because Mulhall brought it up. I was just listening to Mulhall's yesterday and he was talking about the Nirvana Big Day Out or whatever. So he mustn't have been there. But so Nirvana played in the Horde and the skating wasn't in the Horde and Pavilion. However, the day before, I didn't have tickets to the first Big Day Out. This is 92. And Nirvana were playing, Violent Femmes were playing, I think Primus too. And
insane, dude.
And anyway, there was skate demos happening, but they were also having a little renegade street sort of thing happening, and Davo was part of that, right? And so
in 92.
92. And so we were all sort of hanging out collectively then. Obviously, I lived not far from the Horde and Pavilion, you know, where it was all then. And for some reason, maybe we just knew that something was happening, so me and friends were down skating in there or something, because we used to skate in that precinct or whatever, what's now the entertainment quarter.
Yeah.
We used to skate in there. There was skatable stuff in there. So we went down there the day before and it started raining and we ended up taking jump ramp into the Horde and Pavilion. For some reason we were allowed in because things were so much looser back then generally in life. And then there's a bunch of us skating the jump ramp in there. I'm sure Davo was in there. Nathan Ho was there, I'm pretty sure. And my good old friend Paul French, who I used to skate with back in the day.
Not roller skater?
No.
Who was the roller skater?
No, that was Paul Rollerball.
Paul Rollerball, that's right.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But there was a whole bunch of us skating there. And then Nirvana came out and did a sound check. 6-song sound check.
Bullshit.
With like 50 of us in the Horde and Pavilion.
And you got a private show.
We got a private show, 6-song private show by Nirvana.
What songs were they like?
Oh, I can't remember that. But
Smells Like Teen Spirit?
I don't think they did Teen Spirit. But it was like...
And how was it? Were you just blown away?
Well, we're just like, we're skating to Nirvana right now. And, it only just gotten, Bleach or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
Nevermind, I should say.
Yeah,
Nevermind. And all of that. So it was just like, oh, my goodness. And like they played one song. It was like, cool, the sound check. And then they just played 5 more songs. And it was like, I can't believe we just got a private Nirvana show. in the Horde and Pavilion. That was like, whoa.
I knew you had some stories like that.
Yeah, no, that was pretty special. And then we didn't have tickets, me and my friend Paul. We really wanted to go see a bunch of the bands. The next day we were like looking around to try and jump the fence or whatever, but that just didn't seem possible. And then they opened up ticket sales at the door, like 100 tickets, and we just managed to get in that line. Because I wasn't part of the skating demo at that stage. Vert skating wasn't quite up to the scratch right then, but we ended up getting part of the 100 tickets and got in there and got to see Nirvana play that show, and they locked people out too because everyone wanted to see Nirvana as well, but we got into the main show as well as everything else.
Hey, listen, I've asked a few people this, but I still haven't met anyone, but were you at the Big Day Out when Silverchair played on one of the outside stages? I think it was 94 or 6, maybe 96. And Silverchair played for the first time at Big Day Out, and they had the skates set up on outside the main arena, and they had a car there, and it was when like Al Peterson, I think it was like a consolidated tour or something, like Al Peterson, Karma,
Billy Pepper,
Billy Stepper, who wanted to fight everyone,
who got skating barred from the Big Day Out.
Oh, was it that Big Day Out? No. But anyway. And Silverchair were playing, everyone's skating, and some dude climbed one of those massive light poles, like wasted, because, they said things were looser back there, was able to climb up it, got to the top, and then hung off like a bar. We're talking, I don't know, heights, maybe like 150 metres off the ground or 100 metres. No, is that too big?
Yeah.
100 metres off the ground. Like
100 feet probably, 30 metres probably.
It was huge. Like,
Yeah.
And
Big
then
enough.
Silverchair stopped and the whole place just looked up and were just like the whole place stopped. And even Silverchair just had to stop and because security told him to stop. And then so they could get on the stage and go, dude, get down. You know, they had to get on the
Because who's
microphone.
going to go up there?
Yeah. Do you remember? Does anyone
I
else
don't
remember that?
remember
If
that.
you were there and you remember that moment, please hit me up because that, to this day, was one of the most insane things I've ever seen.
No, insane. I missed that. I wasn't big into Silverchair, so I wouldn't have like specifically.
Well,
gone to
either
see
was
them or
I.
whatever.
I'd never heard of them because it was the first time they'd ever played. But I was just
Yeah,
said,
right.
I mean, big day outs for me back then would I'd just stay around the skate area the whole time, and if there was a band nearby, that's what you were like. I wasn't going to watch bands. I was there for the skating.
Yeah, fair enough. For sure. I ended up doing the Mulhall also talked about the 97 Big Day Out tour with Mulhall and Luxford and crew, and Tony Hawk was on that one, and Mike Frazier, and that was definitely a highlight experience. And yeah, the Prodigy playing, I remember them playing Breathe, and it was just reverberating through the whole stadium, and the heads were just going up and down in this big wave, and I was just looking going, wow, this is a moment right here. That was pretty special. I felt very blessed to be chosen by Fox. Bless John Fox for all that he's done within skateboarding and running all those things and helping with Bondi skate riders and small stuff. But he's done so much in skating, and I was very grateful to him for inviting me to do that tour with Tony and everyone. And yeah, that was an amazing one. Yeah, Prodigy there. That was Tony Hawk demo with the Prodigy playing was just pretty next level.
Pinching yourself.
Pretty much.
Did you develop any sort of relationship with Tony, like mates?
No.
Or was it
not
always
really,
just
no.
like?
I do think he recognises me when I see him. He's like he knows, because I've been around skated with him in Encinitas. I've skated his ramp in the States previously, not with him at the time. But I've been in a lot of things. I was assistant tour manager with Fox at the 2012 Big Day Out tour when it got revived for a minute, and Tony was doing that, and I was helping everyone, not necessarily with that crew, but seen him at Bolorama and stuff. So, there's recognition there, I'm pretty sure, but it's not like, Tony, how many people does Tony know? A few.
He's been around. He's
been
pretty
around
popular.
a little bit.
What about, so why did Billy Pepper get skateboarding barred from Big Day Out?
Because he just cut loose, apparently.
What did you do, like try to fight people?
Nah, just destroying hotels and all of that stuff.
So he was on the Big Day Out tour. Was it he was on an Element tour?
Yeah, but it was, combined, and so they did the Big Day Out stuff or whatever with it. So
I just remember he did a tour, and just on that tour, like he was in all these fights, like he was fighting people all the time.
I think there was that too. There was many things.
And then like people were nicknaming him Billy Stepper.
I didn't
he was stepping
hear
up
that
to
one.
people.
I didn't hear that one.
Like whatever. I'm not trying to whatever. Just memories come flowing through me.
No, I forgot all about that until you just said him then, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I heard that he was the one who got skated. And I was like, we're off skaters now. Pretty much.
Anyway, listen, got to wrap it up, dude. So good talking to you. And yeah, we might leave it there. Mr. Ty Coling, everybody.
Thanks, Jan.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Good work. Keep it up.
Thank you.